Hi guys! Today we'll be recapping a story called The Tyrant Wants to Be Good. Please like the video and subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot. Enjoy! With the power borrowed from the spirit of light, the sun was brought up, and Friday, the spirit conjurer, summoned the night through the spirit of darkness. Once Millionaire gives vitality to life, Friday would present the gift of rest, and as Millionaire shines warm light on the world, Friday would offer shade to rest from the light and heat. And that's how the world, the Uvera Empire, was created in their hands. With the sole power to summon the spirits with majesty and splendor, the imperial family of Millionaire and the family of Archduke Friday are irreplaceable and unique. But to Dorothea Millionaire, princess of the Uvera Empire who's reading the story, it's just so ridiculous. Suddenly, she moves away upon hearing her older brother, Raymond Millionaire, the crown prince of the Uvera Empire, approaching her. Though Raymond is just as cute and cheerful as he is, Dorothea still thinks that he has no sense of dignity. She suddenly feels teary-eyed when she remembers how she killed him. That's right, the present she's living in now is her second chance in life and also the last opportunity given to her as the tyrant. She swears not to make the same mistake twice. She constantly reminds herself to just be good. In her past life, after killing Raymond and usurping the throne, she became the Emperor of Uvera, eliminating those who stood in her way and sharing wealth and power with those she favored. However, it ended in destruction. The man she loved hated her and chose death. Those people whom she shared her power with used that power to strangle her. The people pointed their fingers at her, calling her a tyrant, and their anger set her palace on fire and beckoned her death. And thus, she accepted her fate. However, she was granted a new life, a chance to turn her life stained with evil and regrets. So in this life, she must not kill him again. And with that, of course, she must not hate him, but given Ray's personality, maybe she should just unalive him. Kidding. Our princess just hates clingy and noisy people. No need to draw a sword here, princess. But to be honest, she never liked Ray. He's got nothing in his pretty little head, yet he has more than she'll ever have just because he's a crown prince. Still, Ray insists on playing outside, but she'd rather read history books than spend her time elsewhere. When the governess notices that Dorothy's reading the Stone of the Spirit of Light and is being corrected, she realizes that Dorothy is indeed a genius. Oops, maybe she should have pretended to know a little less. Then, the governess thinks that the Emperor, Karnan Millionaire, should hear about this, but Dorothy clenches her fist, telling her not to. The word father always feels like a very foreign word that she can only guess the loose translation of, but never really understands what it means. Although they are blood, this bears no significance on her, for she did not inherit the qualification of a millionaire. Her mother, Empress Alice, passed away during childbirth, and Karnan always kept his distance from her. She used to try so hard to catch his attention, striving to be better than Ray. However, he would never give her a second chance, but with Ray, things were different. Without having to do anything at all, Ray received gifts from Karnan and even shared meals together. She started to question why Ray received so much love, who just messed around despite his position as the crown prince. This is what happens when you neglect your children, folks. They may turn into a tyrant. Is that all to that? Or is it because she's not the chosen one? And so, she took every opportunity to be cruel to Ray, but only worsened her relationship with Karnan. She has always longed and craved for love, but her life was too odious for that. Her love was always one-sided and unrequited. And so, the seed of evil grew rapidly in the fertile soil of her anger and resentment, to which eventually gave birth to the envious and jealous soul-trampling evil that greedily devours others. In the present, Dorothy realizes that even passing off her sins to others is meaningless, blaming herself for not being lovable enough. But that's all right. She can't care more about her father, and it would be better to live without seeing a single shadow. She just has to be good in this life. A day later, the governess points to Alice's home, the garden that Karnan made for her when she was homesick, thinking that it might change Dorothy's mood. However, Dorothy is startled when the governess greets the Emperor. Upon seeing her father's frown, she gulps, thinking what to say. Just then, Karnan coldly asks her who she is to dare enter Alice's garden. Sir, that's obviously your daughter who takes after your tyrannical side. The governess introduces Dorothy, but Karnan thinks that she has no manners for not greeting him. Of course, the governess comes to the rescue, saying that she is very clever and precocious, and that at her age, she's able to memorize the entire genealogy of the Millionaire family. Karnan tests if it's true, but Dorothy will not recite it if it won't benefit her, so as not to waste his valuable time. After all, he hasn't spared a moment to see her since birth. Burn? Take that, Mr. Emperor of child negligence! Shockingly, Karnan agrees to give her whatever she wants. Despite not wanting anything from him at this point, she can't refuse to answer the Emperor. And so, Dorothy likes to have the finest wine made in her name, something that will be useful in the future. Karnan, on the other hand, is startled by how she knows about wine just by reading a difficult book such as the Portrait of Babalua. Karnan agrees to it, but one name wrong would mean a punishment to her governess for lying to the Emperor about Dorothy's strength. Like father, like daughter, huh? Since she has decided to be good in this life, she should at least save the governess. The next day, Dorothy's glad not to see Karnan because he will only ruin her mood. She must avoid all things that detract from her resolution to be good. Only now did she realize that being good is doing basically nothing at all. We'll have to review that, princess, but for now, let's focus on not doing any harm to others, especially to Ray. Speaking of, Ray calls for her name, so she rushes to hide, instructing her governess not to tell Ray where she is. Ray is kinda down because he wants to show her how to wield the Spirit of Light. Wielding the Spirit of Light is said to be a unique blessing for the Millionaires, but that's a very distant story. Millionaire's power, which was said to have made the sun rise, has become desperately weak, and it now has reached a point of only being able to light small fires. And over time, millionaires have been born unable to wield spirits at all. Millionaires like Dorothy. And so, this gave people more reason not to love her, including Karnan. In her defiance against God, she burned with even more fervor in her jealousy of Ray. Due to her bitterness, she used her sword to take the power from the spirit. From the throne, she declared the end of the age of mythology and the beginning of the age of humanity with a bloody sword in her hand. But she failed and was executed a few years later for tyranny. Her humble downfall must have been a punishment from the great legend for her arrogance. Back in the present, Ray is saddened since he also wants to introduce his friend to her. Dorothy turns around the pathway, but she bumps into someone, causing her to fall. When she looks up, she sees the face of a child, the man she loved the most in her former life and the man who loathed her the most. How could she ever forget her love, her breath, her eternity? Theon. Theon is so sorry for ruining her dress and making her cry, but she isn't crying because of it, but rather she misses him a lot. Theon is surprised at how she managed to know his name, but he just wipes her tears with great care. Dorothy can't believe how Theon, who resented her so much, is very much alive, standing in front of her and more radiant than ever. Oh, it must be difficult for her to see the love of her life without remembering what happened before. Theon smiles, calling her a good girl after she calms down a bit. Dorothy thinks that perhaps he is the reason for her return to this life. Suddenly, Ray appears and grabs Theon's collar for hurting Dorothy. But Dorothy manages to get in between and lies about hurting her eyes with some dust. Theon, on the other hand, is surprised at how a princess covered up his insolence. He's even more surprised to see her reaction as if they've already met a long time ago. Ray apologizes to Theon and introduces him as his new friend, Theon Friday. Theon then kisses her hand as a greeting. Oh, our little princess is blushing. Dorothy thinks that it's their new beginning, and so she starts to ask herself, if she could renounce her cruel demands for love and let go of the tragedies of the past, and if she could love him for his sake, could he spare a glance for her in this life? However, she forgets one more thing. Someone calls out Theon's name from behind. Julia Delavigne, Theon's first and last love. Oh no, things just got complicated. Theon, who had no choice but to marry her due to her persistence and the oath between their families, was in love with Julia until his last breath. Having a long-standing friendship as childhood friends, their relationship was special, and the two of them fit together like puzzle pieces. Clearly, there was no room for Dorothy. She craved Karnan's love to no avail and also sought after Theon's love, which was also futile. Theon kept pursuing Julia even after their marriage by exchanging dozens of secret letters. Dorothy could still remember how he smiled whenever he wrote letters to Julia, a countenance he never reserved for her. And to wipe that beaming smile of his, she ordered someone to fabricate a very plausible charge to lead Julia to her death. Of course, she was overjoyed and deluded that Theon would finally be hers. but he chose death over her embrace, leaving her for Julia once again. In the end, it was her selfish love that drove him to death. But could someone call it love when she felt this unbearable heart-splintering ache over and over? Her life was really filled with suffering, wasn't it? And in return, she made the lives of people around her miserable too. Ugh, I hope it'll be different this time around. Even in her second life, Theon and Julia are inseparable. Embarrassed by what her face looks like after seeing them, she excuses herself. She should have known that there's no room for her there. That night, she still clings to Theon's handkerchief, which was given to her when she started crying earlier, in her sleep as her tears roll down. A few days later, Rey is pacing back and forth, extremely nervous that he's becoming the official crown prince at this very day. Even Dorothy can't believe this dewy-eyed brother is to lead the Empire. Good grief. However, she flinches when he tells her that she is the rightful heir to the throne, but she can't since she isn't able to wield the spirits. Thinking about how simple-minded Rey is, his unwitting naivety is the most toxic poison. Rey asks for a hug, but Dorothy just walks away and ignores his request. Poor Rey. I just want to protect him, even though Dorothy is so cruel to him. An investiture is a ceremony where the Emperor formally announces the official successor to the people and is considered one of the Empire's most important affairs. Looking at the scepter, there is supposed to be a spirit stone, but it's now missing. There was news that it was found right before she was executed, but it doesn't matter now. And thus, the investiture is undertaken on this very day. Rey glances at her and gives her his warmest smile. Also, the spirits are flowing in her direction, which makes her even more annoyed. I'm sure Rey just loves you, Dorothy. No need to be ashamed of that. When Karnan crowns his son, Dorothy just hopes that the next sovereign is a good and wise king for the history of books. After that, people start greeting Karnan and Rey, but Dorothy just stands behind them. Their name is like a curse to her because whenever those people admire how she looks just like her mom, Karnan will just tell them that they are spouting nonsense. Ugh, this guy. How can you be so cruel? Dorothy has no choice but to bear with this blatant rejection with no escape, being ignored and treated like a candlestick on the wall. If it were just the old her, she would have been causing trouble for Rey, but that was then. She just wants this to be over, hoping that Rey will understand that it's not a place for her to be in. Suddenly, Theon approaches her with a glass of wine in hand. Dorothy is surprised to see Theon approaching and talking to her, but Theon notices that she hasn't touched any food or drink, so he brings her a glass of pomegranate juice. Well, of course our little princess is kind of delusional, thinking that he must have been watching her all this time. And now she's thinking of savoring every sip. Little princess, let's not assume unless stated. We're on your side here, and we definitely don't want you to get hurt. Theon starts talking about how smart she is based on what Rey has told him, and so he looks forward to seeing her at Epitheme soon. Epitheme is the Empire's most prestigious academy, producing the finest minds in this land and the hub of all social connections among the nobility's youth, advantageously forged for future relations. However, unlike Rey, who was able to easily enroll, she was not given that privilege because she must not overshadow the Crown Prince in any way. In rebellion against this injustice, she snuck out of the palace and hurled a stone at Epitheme, which hit the eldest son of Duke Bronte in the head. It was the final straw in her relationship with Karnan. She doesn't want to repeat that because she already let go of her selfish desires. Theon is quick-witted, so he picks up on the situation just by looking at Rey's position and hers. Dorothy is anxious about Theon seeing this side of hers, so she tries to change the subject, but then Julia comes, telling him that the Grand Duke is asking for his presence. Dorothy is alone again, so she decides to retire to her room when suddenly, someone jabs her drink, causing it to splash all over her dress. But she is even more worried about the juice that Theon gave her. However, Karnan tells her to apologize. Rey objects, saying that she's the victim, but Dorothy bows her head and apologizes to Duke Bronte, a far superior presence in this court than a mere princess with only the facade of power. Gosh, their father really infuriates me. His senseless actions are unacceptable. For Dorothy, it isn't hard to apologize. This kind of treatment is nothing, really. Even better, an acceptable reason to be excused. However, when she looks around, she sees Theon looking at her. She feels nauseous and can't bear their pitiful glances at the pathetic sight of a powerless princess on display. Deep inside, she is begging them to look away, especially him. It's funny how a mere glass of juice can fill one's rosy desires for a moment and suddenly upend her evening soon after, revealing her hidden vulnerabilities. She is used to how Carnan treats her that way, but she can't simply handle that look in Theon's eyes. Even knowing for a fact that he has no feelings for her, she is still jealous of seeing him with Julia. She knows that she must let him go. God, that's heartbreaking. Suddenly, Ray knocks on her door, asking if she wants to talk about it. However, Dorothy just shoves him away. Ray even proposes to have a little party of their own, but Dorothy's upsetting mood is displaced to him. She opens the door and grabs his attire, angrily reminding him to act like a crown prince and emphasizing that she doesn't need his pity. Poor Ray. He just wants to comfort her and make sure that she won't feel out of place. Then, she begs him to leave her alone, crying out in anger. However, she stops when she hears Theon's voice, asking if she's all right. He's right there all along. Oh no, you promised to be good, Dorothy. You betrayed us. It turns out that Ray has brought them, so they could all play together. Dorothy suddenly slams the door shut, embarrassed of what she did to her brother. In her room, she now despises herself for being so pitiful and unlovable. What will he think of her now? She promises to be good. No, better than everyone else. That's her resolution of repentance in this life, but what will happen from now on? For days, she is bedridden, but all this time, she keeps saying to be good. When she finally recovers, she notices Ray's presence peeking in the door. He flinches when she calls out his name and nervously goes into the room, bringing his first crop of tomatoes as a present. Turns out that he made a secret vegetable garden behind the castle. But Dorothy doesn't seem to appreciate her brother's efforts and starts to point out how he should be busy studying instead of growing some vegetables in his little garden. In his defense, he studies from time to time. In her mind, Ray is so unaware that some people are vying to surpass him. Unlike her, he already has the world in his hands without any effort, and while enjoying all the time he has, he's still managed to become the crown prince. We're not trying to invalidate Dorothy's feelings, but Ray deserves to be happy in whatever he does, too, as a child. After all, we really don't know the pressure that he's been carrying all this time, constantly hiding it from his sister so he can cheer her up. But even so, Ray apologizes for always bothering her, but Dorothy tells him that he won't be a good emperor that way. Despite her resolution to be good, there's a part of her that doesn't want him on that throne. Perhaps it's her irrefutable nature as a tyrant. But still, Ray assures her that he will do his best at Epitheme to become a brother she's proud of. But really, she just wants you to focus on taking care of yourself, Ray. She just can be cruel always. Sometimes. Then, Ray hesitantly asks if she wants to go outside. Dorothy has seen it all already in her past life, so she isn't really interested in taking tours. Ray is tearful at her rejection of his ideas, but after days of persisting, she finally agrees to, but on one condition. She will go alone with the governess to escort her. Ray whimpers, but what matters is that she's going outside. Dorothy, on the other hand, is annoyed at his face, as usual. That morning, the governess gives her an outdoor dress to wear, happily squeezing Dorothy's hand, and hurriedly heads out before she changes her mind. In town, the governess offers her hand to hold Dorothy so she won't get lost. In her previous life, she has never walked this place while holding someone's hand. Poor Dorothy. If your mom was alive, I'm sure she would take you to places and hold your hand. When she sees the entire empire, she is kind of happy about it, realizing how it looks without a tyrant. Oops, you forgot your father, princess. Only he's a tyrant to you. The empire she remembers was full of worn-torn cities, emaciated people, and blood-soaked streets. She thinks that perhaps it wouldn't hurt to briefly partake in this peaceful scenery. However, danger awaits down the alley. Dorothy is lying on the floor. Her eyes are blindfolded while her body is tied with a rope. All she can hear are the voices of men planning to get rid of her the moment money is laid in their hands. She clenches her teeth out of anger. She can't believe that it's happening to her. If this situation happened in her past life, those men would be in great trouble right now. 4 days ago, the governess kept on taking her from store to store to try out different things, and she looked so done with the situation that she was in. Dorothy instantly regrets going out. While they were walking, the governess told her that they would stop by a bookstore in the alleyway to get some books for her. This immediately earned her attention, her face eventually gleaming. She really does know how to lift up Dorothy's mood. They are talking about getting a dessert as they're walking towards the bookstore when all of a sudden, someone attacks the governess from behind, causing her to collapse on the floor. The man grabs Dorothy and presses a handkerchief on her face, causing her to lose consciousness. Present. Dorothy is incredulous that she used to be the empress of an empire, but at that very moment, she looks helpless. In her mind, she doesn't mind dying a little too soon, but she certainly doesn't want to be killed by those thugs. It's been 4 days since those thugs sent the governess to come back with money, but no one came. Dorothy passed out for 4 days too, leading her body to feel weak and parched. These men are cruel. How could they do that to a child? She feels that Karnan will only abandon her, even though the governess does her best. She is left with no choice but to take this matter into her own hands. That's right, Dorothy. You couldn't really expect something from your useless father. She sits and asks them to take off the blindfold and ropes. The moment she opens her eyes, a man with a scar on his forehead greets her with a smile on his face. Right there, the act starts. She pretends to be a powerless little girl. With an innocent look on her face, Dorothy asks the man what his name is, and he answers that he is Tutu. She asks him if he is her new governess, but he politely declines, saying that he isn't. With an adorable expression trying to show her charm, she asks him if he is her father's friend, to which he answers yes. She's so cute with those expressions. However, behind those expressions are her bloody thoughts of ripping them apart. She continues to act like an innocent child and goes along with Tutu, until she tells him that she is hungry. He feels sorry for her and asks the other guy named Danny if they can give her some food. But Danny doesn't like it. He threatens her with a knife, telling her that they are not her uncles and that they have brought her here to kill her. Tutu is bearable, but Danny's been getting on my nerves. Danny ties her up with a rope once again. All of a sudden, a scorpion appears out of nowhere, which makes both men shriek. Dorothy cleverly offers to catch the scorpion in exchange for untying her. Having no choice, they untie her and Dorothy begins to catch the scorpion. Danny wants her to kill it, but she makes an excuse that she can't since she is too weak to even move her hands. In the end, they end up offering her food, so Dorothy goes out to free the scorpion. The moment she goes out, shock fills her system since the only thing that her eyes can see is sand. They are in a desert. They are in the middle of nowhere, which means that running away isn't an option. Poor Dorothy. What will she do now? Dorothy is still a bit glad that both men kept their promise to let her eat. As she's eating, she hears from both men that it has been spread around the empire that the princess is kidnapped. They know that they have to get rid of her now since they won't be spared the moment they discover who kidnapped the princess. Hearing all of this leaves Dorothy no choice but to wield a knife. Danny suddenly barges in. She swiftly moves and slashes his back with a knife. The blade barely cuts him. He turns around and clutches her neck as he slams her on the wall. Dorothy tries to fight back and slash him with the knife, but she is too weak. How can you do that to a child? As she is fighting for her life, all the resentment begins to form because there is nothing she can do. Just like Ray being the crown prince, her not being enrolled in Epistatheme, not getting Karnan's attention, and not getting the heart of the love of her life, Theon. Lastly, there's nothing she can do to prevent her trusted servant from abandoning her. She gathers all of her resentment, making her fume with anger, which gives her the strength to fight back again and kicks Danny, causing him to land on the floor and stab him with a knife on the knee. He is shrieking with pain as he looks at her pleading to show mercy with those eyes. Those eyes that Dorothy knows well from her past, seeing her as a monster. But why is she the monster when all she wants is to save herself? That's how unfair the world is. You are seen as bad the moment you stand up for yourself. But she vows to be good, so she turns away from him, harming him no longer. She steps outside and she begins her journey on her way home with a heavy heart, having no shoulder to lean on. The night comes and the wind gets stronger and colder, without a light in sight. She feels powerless. Would things be more different if she could wield the spirit of light? Better yet, if she's Rey, will anyone come to her rescue? She gives up and is ready for her death, a lone death, flickering out like a dying ember. It is far better than she could ever ask for. Just when she accepts her death and is ready to close her eyes, a light and the sound of horse hooves is coming her way. Finally, a reason for you to live! This makes her realize that the gods are cruel indeed. Just when she accepts her ending, they give her a reason to hope and a shameless desire to live. Her legs wobble trying to stand up as she raises her hands calling out for help, but her body can't take it, so she collapses on the ground. However, her efforts weren't wasted. The Empire's search party has found her. Dorothy wakes up from her deep sleep, and the moment she opens her eyes, she is greeted by a familiar room, and that's when she realizes that she's back. As she's analyzing the situation, she hears a familiar voice. It's Karnan's. He's talking about her situation and the people who kidnapped her. She swiftly gets out of bed and walks towards the door. She feels hopeful that Karnan went there to check on her and that he somehow cared about her. However, that overflowing hope vanishes the moment she hears her father treat her situation as a pesky nuisance. Karnan orders the governess to take care of the situation and to make sure that there's no more hassle. He's determined to bury the situation and even go to lengths of punishing the people who escalate what happened as if his daughter's life wasn't put at risk. He's really proven himself as a worthless father. The most horrible father award goes to Karnan without a doubt. Realizing how unloved she is by her own father, Dorothy's heart shatters. Despite how brave and strong she is, the pain that she feels due to her father's treatment of her can't be denied. Karnan is a jerk, a perfect example of a worthless father. Can he give a bit of sympathy because of what his daughter experienced? Her entire life, Dorothy thinks that her father dislikes her because of her selfishness, but she has done nothing to provoke him. This makes her realize that maybe he simply doesn't like her. Perhaps the situation that she is in is her punishment for the sins that she had done in her previous life. Her punishment for being a tyrant. The next day, the servants check on her. She immediately knows that the governess is replaced. She wonders if her previous governess is doing fine. She feels sorry. The governess is so kind and sweet towards her. Considering her situation, the guy servant recommends she take a rest at the seaside since it is quiet and full of fresh air. The seaside. This means that she can leave the palace away from everyone else. It is perfect for her since she will be away from prying eyes and can finally hone her strength in peace. Her fists clenched. Despite wanting to hone her strength, the mistakes she made in the past are still haunting her. But that's all it is. It's in the past. Perhaps this time she could put that strength into good use. She tells the new governess that she wants to go there, but she tries to stop her since the castle by the seaside is too huge for her. In the middle of a discussion, with a huge smile on his face, Ray enters the room holding a bouquet. It feels like his jolly presence instantly lights up the room. He's such a sunshine. Ray has been visiting her ever since she arrived. When he knew that she was planning to go to the seaside to recuperate, he was disappointed. He doesn't want to be away from her. He begs her to stay and even offers her to go to the Epistatheme with him. In the end, no matter how much he begs her, she's already firm in her position. Dorothy explains that what happened to her is not his fault, so he isn't obliged to visit her. This makes him whine, but he can do nothing about it. In the end, Dorothy asks him to leave since she wants to rest. Ray is such a sweet brother. He genuinely cares for her and is still kind towards her despite her attitude. I want a brother like him. A few days later, it's the day of her departure. While walking towards the carriage, Dorothy thinks that it's a good thing she told Ray not to send her off because she knew she'd be getting a headache because of him. For sure, he will whine the entire time and beg her to stay. Ray will most likely do it. He's such a cutie. Before she can even step into the carriage, someone stops her. It is Theon. She's in shock since she isn't expecting him to come. Most importantly, she doesn't want him to see her in that situation. Theon is glad he made it on time. He purposely went there to give her something. It's candies. He thought that she may experience motion sickness on her journey. Dorothy's cheeks redden the moment she sees the candies. He's so genuine. He genuinely thought of her and even pulled off some efforts to see her off, just to give those candies. That is so sweet. With eyes full of worries and slightly reddened cheeks, Theon avoids her gaze as he tells her that it's a real shame that he won't be able to see her for a while due to her sudden departure. Suddenly, he faces Dorothy with a smile on his face, while hoping for her swift recovery as he also hopes for her to return soon. With thoughts mixing up in her head, Dorothy bids him farewell and turns to ride in the carriage. Theon is so cute. His actions clearly show that he somehow has feelings for Dorothy. He never cared for her in her former life. Deep inside, she's hoping for something between them, but she refuses to entertain such thoughts. In the carriage, she tries to calm herself down, but still, she can't deny the fact that Theon cares for her. It's the first time, and that brings her joy. Suddenly, she pulls out the candies he gave her and presses them into her heart. Her face is brightly red and is full of peace and happiness at that moment. This is my first time seeing her so happy. May it continue. The moment she arrives at the castle by the seaside, she's immediately in love with the place. The peaceful place makes her realize that being away from the palace makes her feel like there's a huge weight off her chest. away from the place where she killed Ray and where Theon died. The palace suffocates her. It's filled with bad memories. The memories of her tyranny. For her, being in a new place is for the best. She can finally start anew here. It must have felt like a breath of fresh air. All of a sudden, someone knocks. It's the castle maid named Clara. Her face is full of worry as she tells Dorothy to wait for her since she'll be devastated if she gets lost. Suddenly, Clara introduces a tall guy to her. It's Sir Stefan Greenwall, the knight who will be guarding her. Not gonna lie, Stefan looks so fine. The moment her eyes lay on him, the memories from the past resurfaced, including the way she killed the person in front of her at this very moment. She can't help but question why he is with her. Why is he guarding a powerless princess? Dorothy stretches her hand as a sign that she's pleased to be his acquaintance. But then, seconds later, he only gave her a high five instead of a handshake. How adorable is this guy? In the study room, Dorothy is planning to write guides on how to be good when suddenly Clara comes in to give her some snacks. Having a hard time on what to write, she asks Clara for some help. Out of nowhere, Stefan also appeared. Clara can't help but chuckle at how adorable Dorothy looks for wanting to write those notes. Clara suggested different things, but it doesn't really please Dorothy. Clara also suggests at least laughing 10 times a day, since for her, laughter is the best medicine. Dorothy gives it a try by trying to smile. She really looks adorable when she's doing it. However, she stops it since forcing a smile only makes her face twitch. It's not like she doesn't want to be happy. It's just that she has no reason to be. She starts to scribble around and writes in her notebook. To be good, she has to do these things. First, smile kindly once a day. Second, do not covet what belongs to another. Third, save 1,000,000 people, and so on. Reading this makes her reminisce about the mistakes that she's made. She had to change. The moment she finishes with it, she asks Stefan to go to the beach with her. As she's enjoying her time, she notices a boy sitting by the beach. He's familiar. She knows that boy clearly. It's Ethan Bronte, the most beautiful yet the most dangerous man she knows. Ethan Bronte, also known as Gold-Eyed Angel. He's everyone's fantasy, may it be men or women. There's no one who dreams of opposing him, and he only has his eyes for Dorothy. He was her right hand. He helped her to kill Ray and unalive Julia. He killed those people Dorothy hated on her behalf. Given how Ethan betrayed her in the past, Dorothy plans on staying away from him in this life. However, she immediately clenches her fist the moment she sees him cry. She has never seen Ethan cry like that, as if he's a completely different person. She immediately reaches him, but he looks surprised. He turns around and runs away. Dorothy wonders why he's crying alone, but then she remembers Ethan's background. He's the son of Duke Bronte, who was born out of wedlock. Ethan Bronte isn't allowed to enroll in Epistetheme and isn't allowed to appear at social events until he becomes an adult. He's hidden all his life by his very own family for being the bastard son. What a painful life to live. As soon as the news about the princess is down the coast, dozens of invitations are sent. She thought that it would only be a simple gathering, but then the moment she meets up with those ladies, she feels like she's surrounded by dozens of Ray. They treat her as a child and even want to feed her. She instantly wants to regret coming there. Out of nowhere, an elegant lady calls her and invites her over to their house. That woman is Duchess Bronte. She invited Dorothy over. Accepting the invitation means that she'll be able to see Ethan, but then that will also be a chance for her to help him not to side with the darkness. Might as well add it to her list of how to be good. At the Bronte's mansion, Dorothy, together with Duke and Duchess Bronte, are eating in the dining hall when all of a sudden, Dorothy opens up about their son. Duke Bronte tells her that their son Jonathan is in Epistetheme at the moment, but then they are left in shock when she says that it's about their other son whom she is talking about and that she wants to meet him. The moment Dorothy tells them that she wants to meet Ethan, Duke and Duchess Bronte start to whisper to each other. Smiles start to form on their faces. They must have thought that Dorothy likes Ethan. After the meal, a servant accompanies her to the garden to see Ethan. When the servant leaves, they start to talk a bit when all of a sudden, Dorothy stares at him, which makes Ethan conscious, and asks her if there's something on his face. She answers that handsomeness was on his face, which turns Ethan red, looking like a tomato. Dorothy? I think every person will eventually feel conscious like Ethan if you stare too much. Looking at his reaction, Dorothy wonders why he isn't well aware that he is handsome. The Ethan that she knows in her former life is more brazen. She doesn't know that he's so different as a child. Looking down with his hands covering his mouth while his cheeks are still red as a tomato, Ethan suddenly tells her that she is the most beautiful person he ever met in his life. Hearing it from him confirms that he's still the Ethan that she knows, the silver-tongued serpent who can coax anyone with sugar-coated words. While talking with Ethan, Dorothy learns that he has no friends, and his brother doesn't want him to go outside that much. Also, nothing good ever happens when he goes outside. That's why he's so glad that Dorothy is visiting him. She then asks him to come over to Anasta's castle sometime. She thinks that they will be friends. Maybe Ethan can live a different life too. Out of happiness, Ethan goes to her and kisses her on the cheeks, which surprises her a lot. Despite what Ethan shows to her, she still thinks that there's still a chance that he might not be genuine, so she still has to be careful. He kissed her! OMG! That was so sudden, but I like Ethan with her more. I'm sorry, Theon. At the castle, Clara is busy planning what to do on Dorothy's birthday together with Stefan. She's planning to go for a surprise, but Stefan doesn't think it's the right way to go. Dorothy doesn't look like the girl who would enjoy surprises. On the day of her birthday, Clara prepares a lot of delicious food and excitedly greets Dorothy. Shortly after, Clara begs her to go outside since the weather is nice. Not even gloomy weather can stop her from her plan. Dorothy knows very well that her words are scripted, but she still picks that seashell that Clara points out. For a moment, she's thinking that maybe there's a present under it, but as she looks around, Clara is no longer there. Suddenly, a man in a lion's suit is approaching her. Our Dorothy is very smart to guess that it's Stefan, even dumbstruck at his lifeless roar. Even so, to do this for her, Stefan is so adorable. In her mind, she wants to stop him, but she remembers how she used the cover of Mighty Lion Leo to hide the actual book she was reading. With a cringe expression, she still goes with the flow, considering it as her good deed for the day. Stefan roars again, and now she's thinking that maybe she should just forget being good. But he's just doing his job, so she gives him the shells that she picked a while ago, telling him to put it in his pocket. Why does a lion have a pocket? He's not a kangaroo. She then remembers how Clara sews pockets on almost everything. Suddenly, she asks if the lion's here because of her birthday. Stefan kneels on one knee and taps her shoulder, greeting her a happy birthday and another roar. For her, it's a little embarrassing, but she lets out a smile and expresses her gratitude. For the first time, she knows how it feels to have someone go the extra mile for her. I feel so sad that she's only now feeling these things when she should have been cherished from the start. Stefan then reaches out and lifts her up. She never thought she'd be in the arms of a loyal knight to Ray. In her past life, she scoffed at Stefan's loyalty to death, belittling the socially inept knight who came from humble beginnings as a mercenary. Only now, she begins to see him in a new light, a ceaseless, diligent, and persevere knight who overcomes all obstacles, including his roots. Unlike her, who took the crooked path at every turn, he walked straight to his goals. She absent-mindedly says out that he has always been a courageous and extraordinary person, but Stefan corrects her that he is a lion, not a person, which makes Dorothy genuinely laugh for the first time. Aw, she really looks cute whenever she smiles more. We want to see more of it, Dorothy. When the rain starts pouring, Stefan runs to the castle, but he refuses to come in just to keep her fantasy alive. Stefan doesn't say much, but he is the sweetest thing. Shortly after, Dorothy receives a letter from Ray, but she's not interested to open it. When Stefan comes in, Clara whispers something that makes him proud and happy. Dorothy knows that they both completely think that she fell for it. Can we take a moment and appreciate how well-built and hot Stefan is? Not to mention, he has a pretty face, too. And so, she just plays along, telling him that she encountered the mighty lion on the beach earlier. However, his proud expression fades in just a blink of an eye when she asks for her present. Clara moves away, leaving him all sweaty to think of anything to say. Suddenly, Dorothy exclaims that she wants to learn swordsmanship to protect herself from harm. She's been staying away from swords in fear that it will end up in tragedy and more greed. But this day, she realizes that good people also need to be strong and that the sword doesn't determine the good and evil of a person. A few months later, Dorothy starts learning swordsmanship, but she's quite frustrated that Stefan doesn't let her use a real sword. Suddenly, she feels someone's presence behind her, so she swings her wooden sword, only to find Ethan. She realizes that she had never seen Ethan wield a sword in the past, but he had countless numbers of supporters who gladly drew their swords on his behalf. Suddenly, Ethan wipes off the sweat on her face, but realizing how awkward it is, she withdraws and wipes herself instead. Then Ethan grabs her hand, hoping that she can show him around since he gave her a tour of their manor last time. She notices that her hand is clammy from training, so she asks to take a bath first. Naughty Ethan then suggests that perhaps they can start their tour in the bathroom. Behave, boy! You're still a spring chicken. Dorothy feels a chill going down her spine, so she quickly turns around. She should have known not to let her guard down around Ethan. But what were you thinking, Dorothy? Ethan is still a baby. He wasn't actually implying anything. Shortly after, Dorothy shows him her bedchamber first. It's rather empty than the lavishly extravagant room in her past life. She got rid of the expensive yet mindless trinkets since she realized that luxurious things are meaningless. Suddenly, Ethan brings out a very valuable jewelry as a present for her, thinking that it can make her happy, but she refuses to accept it. After all, they've only just met, and this kind of trinket should only be given to someone very special to him. Ethan indeed sees her as someone very special, but he just got carried away to have someone visit him for the first time. He then apologizes for being a burden to her. Dorothy is well aware that he has a special talent in burdening others. Suddenly, Ethan notices a letter from the royal palace. Dorothy tells him that it's nothing important, thinking that it only contains a lot of whining from her brother. If only she was granted the same privilege, she would never throw away such an opportunity at Episteme. But I feel sorry for Ray. He is just acting like a kid who loves his sister very much. I hope you see this too, Dorothy. Before they leave the room, Ethan points something out on the drawer, which doesn't look like it's coming from the royal palace. She then shoves it inside the drawer, telling him that it's a gift and that he should not mind it. Ethan then proposes to give her a handkerchief next time. Ethan takes one last look at it, with a dark expression on his face. Oh no, this child is something. A dangerous one. I still can't figure out his intentions, but then again, he's a kid. At dinner, everyone's all gloomy. It turns out there's a deadly disease spreading around and it has killed many people. Although it's curable, the cost of medicine is too expensive for most people. Dorothy doesn't want to return to the royal palace yet. Also, she realizes that this is the perfect opportunity to be good. After 2 weeks, the epidemic starts to die down and the villages that were impacted by the epidemic return to vibrancy. All thanks to Dorothy's wealth and position. However, she's still doubting herself if it's truly a good deed to use excess wealth. Of course it is. You helped a lot of people, Dorothy. Suddenly, a servant comes in with a bag of potatoes, saying that someone left it as a way of thanking her for ending the epidemic. Ethan smiles and tells her that everyone who has experienced her kindness will remember her as a truly good person. Looking at the potatoes, she realizes that this is the first time to see someone express their gratitude because of her good deed. Way to go, Dorothy! 3 years later, Dorothy is still under Stefan's training in swordsmanship. However, she's so frustrated that she can't knock him off his arrogant stance, let alone beat him. Suddenly, she finds an opening when Clara distracts them. However, Stefan just stops her attack with his bare hand. Whew! Quite a long way to go, Dorothy. Meanwhile, in Episteme, Ray is sad because Dorothy hasn't written back in 3 years. Theon pats his shoulder and tells him not to worry, but he himself knows that when they parted, he didn't expect them to be far apart for too long. And so, he advises Ray to take a short leave during vacation in order to see her. Ray's mood suddenly brightens as he happily exits. Poor Ray really has the purest of intentions, but I have a feeling Dorothy will not appreciate his presence. When Dorothy's in the bath, Clara informs her that it has been 3 years since the end of the epidemic, but the people still continue expressing gratitude with vegetables. Dorothy then remembers that she saw a boy who delivered the vegetables. She wanted to invite him for dinner, but he always made a run for it. Shortly after, Dorothy receives another letter from Ray again, but she notices that the other one is meant for Stefan. When asked what it says, Stefan replies that it's about the Order's promotion examination, an opportunity for him to rise to a higher rank in knighthood. Clara is happy for him, but Dorothy seems saddened at the thought of him leaving. When she reads it herself, she finds out that the examination date is fast approaching, so he has to leave this week. Also, the postscript says that there's no plans for a replacement, which means Dorothy will no longer be provided with a guarding knight for her safety and protection. Seriously, Karnan is out of his mind. I am so close to breaking into the palace and dragging him out to the sea. As Clara takes her leave, Dorothy expresses her feelings for him in taking this opportunity, believing that he will surely pass the exam. And so she wants to give him a proper send-off, even if their time together is quite short, but they've grown closer to one another. So as her last request, she asks him to stay for another day. Stefan kneels on one knee and holds her hand, assuring her that he belongs to her as a guard knight whose utmost mission and duty is to keep her safe. Realizing that she's been surrounded by fools who insist on giving up gains and choosing losses, Stefan smiles and tells her that he's only following his heart. In her past life, he was a man who made foolish choices with honesty. And just with that, she jumps to hug him. Deep inside, she doesn't mind being called selfish. Instead, she is rather grateful to him for choosing Dorothea Millionaire. Aww, Stefan really looks like an older brother to her. But I hope she'll learn to appreciate Ray too. In town, Stefan accompanies Dorothy to help people in need, but they stumble upon a signage that says there's an amateur swordsmanship competition. Stefan takes a glance at her as she eagerly convinces him to register. At the registration area, the person in charge belittles Dorothy's capabilities just because she's a child. Dorothy argues in return until she can't stand it anymore. Suddenly, Stefan pulls out his sword and pierces through the table, ordering him to follow the rules. The person trembles in fear and hands out their registration. As they are about to head back, they hear a noise coming from someone. It turns out that Jonathan, Ethan's brother, publicly scolds him for not doing things right. He suddenly slaps him for ruining the gift that was intended for their mother. The audacity of this creature! How could a person be so cruel? And to his brother at that? As Ethan picks up the broken pieces, he flinches as he gets hurt. Jonathan still wants to slap him again when suddenly, Dorothy stops him and helps Ethan to stand. If Dorothy was still a tyrant, he would have been dead by now. Shortly after, Dorothy grabs his arm and asks if this situation happens often. Clearly, it does, so Ethan asks her if he can stay with her until Jonathan calms down a little. Dorothy can't help but to notice that he surely has a pretty face. When they get back to the castle, Ray is there to welcome Dorothy back home. Also, Theon is around. Dorothy can't believe that Theon joins Ray to visit him, so she drags her brother to a room and slams the door, asking why he brought Theon with him. The reason why she left the royal palace was to forget it all to live a new life. Theon's presence in the castle only means a torment on her part, defeating the purpose of her departure. Ray explains that he thought that they could play together in the castle, but Dorothy cuts him off, saying that he didn't consider her feelings or even asking her permission. Ray looks down and stutters to say more, but Dorothy snaps out, emphasizing that their surprise visit is a disaster. She then orders him to leave immediately, although he is hurt and crying that his hopes are crushed the moment they meet after 3 years. I feel really bad for Ray. What did he do to deserve this? Get your act together, Dorothy. She can't stand being the villain in the situation, so she decides to leave the room, but she comes across with Theon, who clearly sees that she doesn't look well. She then runs away from him. She only wants him to see the best of her. Why is it so hard? Although she's no longer a tyrant, she still acts bad towards the people who are good to her. Dorothy starts to question how he suddenly grabs her hand now when she waited a lifetime for him to extend his hand to her. She wants to look back, but she can't bring herself to do that. She doesn't deserve to look at him. Theon speaks up for visiting her all of a sudden without telling her in advance. He understands that she's upset by his presence when he's not even part of the royal family. He just simply wants to see her again. After seeing her off 3 years ago, he has been worried about her, so he told Ray to come along as well. And so, he asks if she's uncomfortable with his presence. Dorothy answers that she's not, but he still notices that she'd always make that gloomy look on her face whenever she sees him. And so, he kneels down, still not letting go of her hand, hoping that they can get along well. The thought of them getting along well sends a throbbing ache in her heart. She remembers how she begged him not to leave her, and all she ever wanted was for them to get along well together. Gosh, the pain that she must have felt about not being loved back. She must have said those exact words to him hundreds of times, and now he's repeating those back to her? Suddenly, Ethan approaches them and asks for medicine. This gives her an opportunity to excuse herself from Theon. Before they leave, Ethan takes a glance at Theon as he stares back at them. In the room, Dorothy realizes how foolish she is for running away when all Theon asked for was to get along well. As Ethan moves closer to her, saying that it's her that needs the medicine, since she looks worse off than him. He then leans closer to her and boldly confesses that he likes her. Dorothy's shocked for a moment, but she realizes that he's lying again and tells him to stop it because it's not funny. And so, she tosses him outside the room. Outside the room, Ethan thinks that her reactions are strange. When he spots Theon, he confidently approaches and introduces himself. He even lies about how Dorothy applies the medicine herself. Theon is quite speechless of it, thinking about something. After introducing himself, he reaches out to the doorknob, but Ethan stops him, saying that Dorothy wants to get some rest. Theon can't help but to ask if he's close with her. He then answers that they're close enough to see each other at least once a week, implying how unlucky Theon's situation is. This kid? I'm starting to hate him. Ugh. They stare at each other for a while, unable to blink or gaze away even for a second. If stares can kill, I wonder who's down by now. However, Ethan smirks and bows to excuse himself. In the room, Dorothy keeps self-sabotaging her progress. Suddenly, someone knocks on the door with a wordless response. She thinks that it's Theon, but as she opens the door, she sees Stefan standing in front of her. It's cute how he responds with a nod or a shake of his head whenever someone asks him questions. Also, it's cute how Dorothy understands him as if she knows him by heart. Dorothy pats on the couch, telling him to sit. A deafening silence envelops the room for a moment. Then, she asks if he can lend his ears for a second, to which he agrees. She then tells him about a terrible nightmare where the person she loved didn't like her. He hated her so much that he ended up hanging himself in her room. All this time, she's been thinking that maybe she's just a bad person from the beginning, since she was born by killing her mother. She didn't really kill her mother, but the thought of Alice dying after giving birth to Dorothy still leaves a big impact on her growing up. And so she thinks that maybe she can't be loved and that she's destined to be a bad person no matter what she does. It scares her sometimes that there may only be evil in the roots of the Empire's princess and that she's been evil since birth. Out of the blue, Stefan pulls her closer and hugs her tightly as he pats her back, telling her that she's a good child. In her mind, she thanks him from the bottom of her heart and deeply regrets killing him in her past life. In this life, she really wants to be good. Meanwhile, while Clara looks for Dorothy, she stumbles upon Ray, who's sitting on the floor bawling his eyes out. Ray looks down, thinking that Dorothy hates him a lot. He was just worried about her being alone all these years. Is it so strange for a brother to act like that? He's been waiting for this day way before even the vacation started, and now everything's not going well. Perhaps he's just a fool in Dorothy's eyes. I feel really bad for him. But still, he doesn't give up on proving himself to her. As much as I want to validate Dorothy's feelings, her treatment towards him is really bad. Clara disagrees that he's a fool since he's enrolled in the most prestigious institution in the whole empire. Ray confesses that he even placed 80th in the last exams out of 100 students. He only wishes that she likes him, but he doesn't know what to do. And so, he considers doing what Dorothy likes in hopes that she'll like him. Clara then points out that Dorothy likes swordsmanship and that there's a competition coming up in a few days. He thinks that if he wins that competition, Dorothy will definitely see his worth. Little Ray is kind of delusional, isn't he? Just kidding. We will definitely support him. And so, it's decided. When Theon reconnects with Ray, he blames himself for coming along, thinking that she's in a bad mood because of his presence. He emphasizes that he's not a royal family member and not even close to her. Suddenly, he sees the handkerchief that he offered when she cried the first time they met. He was sure she had thrown it away. Later that night, Dorothy comes out on the balcony, unable to fall asleep because she knows that Theon is close by. Holding the handkerchief in hand, she thinks that perhaps she should return it. Because of a sudden gust of wind, the handkerchief flies out of Dorothy's hand. She can only despair as she watches it slowly glide to the ground below. To her surprise, it lands in front of someone else. It's Theon. He reaches down and picks it up, and when he looks up, he locks eyes with Dorothy. Dorothy frantically explains that she was meaning to give it back to him, but she just hasn't had a chance to. Rather than replying to that, Theon grins at her and tells her that she looks better when she smiles. OMG, this kid has a way with words. He is going to grow up to be quite the charmer. While Dorothy is still processing that he actually said that, Theon begins climbing the tree right next to her room. When he reaches a sturdy branch leveled in front of her, he gives her a grateful smile and thanks her for not running away. Dorothy finds it ironic that he says it to her now when he was the one who always ran away from her in the past. She can barely control the tears threatening to fall down her cheeks. It must be so painful for her. Poor Dorothy. She then asks him to come to the balcony, worried that he might fall from his precarious position. As Theon reaches to take her hand, he declares that the princess is incomprehensible. Dorothy replies that she can say the same to him. Theon finally has a chance to ask Dorothy if he makes her uncomfortable. Dorothy frantically denies that he does. Hearing this relieves Theon, and he confesses that it made him happy that they met each other again. He admits that even though he wanted to see her again, he hesitated to send her a letter, thinking that she would not welcome a letter from him. Dorothy is overwhelmed with emotions. The Theon she knew had always avoided her. Now, he stands in front of her, telling her that he wants to see her. She diverts the subject and asks him instead why he is out in the garden late at night. His answer is simple. He just loves the night. Perhaps it's because he's a Fried. His affinity to darkness endearing him to the darkness more than others. Of course, Dorothy already knows this. Before they parted ways, he told her that she could hold on to his handkerchief. Dorothy is deeply moved. She had never received a gift from him before. She brings it against her chest and expresses her gratitude. Later on, Clara is hysterical when she learns that Dorothy has entered the youth division of the sword fighting tournament. She is worried that the princess might get injured even though Dorothy tells her that she'll be fine. Clara then directs her ire at the unsuspecting Stefan. She is especially anxious because Prince Raymond has entered the same tournament and brother and sister may end up facing each other. That can't be good. The last time they fought each other was not a pretty sight. Ray is devastated the following day when he finds out as well. Raymond is such a good brother. I just hope Dorothy can finally see this for herself. Dorothy herself contemplates not joining the tournament, but she decides that she doesn't want to give up what she loves for Ray. Fortunately for Clara's nerves, Dorothy's first match is not against the prince. She is against Alex, a kid who is much older than her. Ethan is not at all happy when he learns that Dorothy has entered the tournament, especially since her opponent is twice her size. Fortunately, his father is the one hosting the tournament, so with a glint in his eyes, he approaches him, requesting that they change the matchup so that kids will fight those who are of similar size to them. Once again, enamored by Ethan's charm and kind heart, his father promises to change the matchup accordingly. Upon learning that the lineup has changed, Alex boasts that his opponent has chickened out, and how embarrassing it is that he has to fight a little kid. Dorothy hears this, and she is not going to let someone belittle her like this. She taunts the older boy, claiming that the organizers just want to make sure that he stays alive longer. Alex proves to be a hot-headed person, insulting her out of rage. Rather than reacting to Alex's barbaric behavior, Dorothy merely invites him to prove himself in the arena. The first match is announced, and Ray is going up first. When he spots his sister in the crowd, he happily waves at her. But as usual, his cold sister merely turns away from him. Nonetheless, the match begins in earnest, and Dorothy instantly sees the change in his eyes. She thinks about how he always acts like an idiot, but his entire demeanor changes in crucial moments such as this. She still hates him for it. Ray wins the first match. He really is more than meets the eye. Up next is Dorothy, and she still ends up going against the arrogant Alex, taunting her. At that point, Dorothy sure thinks that a real sword might have been nice. And sure enough, without even flinching, the princess is able to deflect any attack directed at her. Alex is flabbergasted that such a young girl can fight like that and still look like she's bored. That's our Dorothy for you, a true sword princess. Soon enough, her opponent is on the ground and Dorothy takes the win. Nevertheless, the siblings advance through the competition, winning every match. Now that Dorothy has reached the semifinals, she is up against a boy named Joey. The first thing he does is apologize to her because he really needs to win. Dorothy recognizes him for some reason and then realizes that he is the boy who would drop off his gift every year. However, despite his best efforts, he is no match for Dorothy's skills. Sure enough, Dorothy wins again, and she confronts him about the reason why he desperately needs to win the 10 blank prize money. He spitefully answers that it can feed him for a month, insulting her as he does so. Rather than snapping at the kid, Dorothy calmly tells him that he can come find her when he needs help, especially since she's still enjoying the potatoes he's been giving her. That is when he realizes that he is fighting against the princess. Eventually, it is time for the final match, and of course, it is a face-off between brother and sister. Raymond, ever the loving brother, asks his sister if she wants to be in the first place. However, even if his intention is good, he only irritates Dorothy. She sternly tells him to not go easy on her. The match begins, and all she can think about is how people seem to think they can easily defeat her. Does she look so weak to them? Clash after clash, the sibling swords strike each other, both unrelenting. However, in just a split second, Ray gets the better of her and his wooden sword hits her shoulder. She is surprised by her oversight, and Ray instantly stops his attack upon seeing his sister hurt. He begins apologizing, guilty about hitting her too hard. No, Ray really is the sweetest person. He is the loving brother that everyone deserves. But of course, this only infuriates Dorothy, demanding that it did not hurt and that he better focus on the match. However, Ray is too worried for her, not wanting to keep fighting her. Dorothy is angered by this, and so she throws her sword to the ground, leaving her brother standing there as she walks away. Ray follows her while calling out her name. The organizer of the tournament attempts to follow as well, but he trips onto the rope that's holding onto the wooden pillar, knocking it down. When Dorothy turns back, she sees her brother is about to be hit by the pillar. Oh no! Ray! She lets instinct take over and she pushes her brother out of the way, and the pillar falls on her instead, crushing her arm underneath it. Our poor princess is injured. Back at the mansion, Dorothy's arm is in a sling and she has to sit and listen to Clara lecturing her non-stop. The maid berates her for jumping in like that and risking her own life. Even Dorothy herself does not understand why she did what she did. Regardless, she answers that it is better that it is she who is injured instead of the crown prince because his life is more important. Hearing this surprises Stefan and Clara, and the maid passionately declares that since they are her people, they will always save her first. She really found a family in Clara and Stefan. You deserve this, Dorothy. Dorothy, upon hearing such a sweet statement, blushes and smiles brightly, thanking them earnestly. Meanwhile, Ray is beside himself due to guilt. The poor boy is crying so hard because he is the reason why his sister is injured. He now sees that coming there is a disaster. Oh, it really breaks my heart when I see this ball of sunshine crying. Theon wants to comfort his friend, but he figures that it is better to leave him alone for now. He leaves Ray's room only to come across Ethan Bronte. The tension between these two is palpable. They sure don't like one another. Ethan comments that he thought Theon would have been home by now, and Theon haughtily replies that it's none of his business. Ethan is not fazed. Rather, he tells him that the princess is uncomfortable when he's around. Theon then mentions that Ethan seems to be interested in the princess. Ethan does not deny his speculation, claiming that he likes Dorothy. Wow, Ethan really is bold. He also brings up Julia, reminding Theon of the girl he supposedly likes. However, Theon denies this, stating that Julia is just a friend. Well, it makes sense. They are still too young to like someone romantically. Afterward, Dorothy has been patched up and Lord Bronte takes responsibility for the incident since it was his event. But deep inside, he is quite relieved that it was her who was injured rather than the crown prince. Ugh, this person! I don't want Ray injured as well, but for an adult to think like this? How ill-mannered. Dorothy magnanimously dismisses his supposed worries, thanking him for his cooperation instead. Shortly after, the princess leaves, before Ethan can even talk to her. However, he is devastated when she does not look at him once. On their way back, Ray is still crying, thanking her for saving him. He is so apologetic for getting her hurt. He asks her to never do such a thing again because he doesn't want to see her hurt. Dorothy contemplates how Raymond's good nature will hinder him from being a good emperor. She wants him to change this. Oblivious to her thoughts, he offers to do whatever she wants to help her. Dorothy decides to take advantage of this. Dorothy is lying in bed, wide awake. Earlier, she was informed that Theon would be returning to the capital early the following day. This bothers her because she doesn't know when she'll see him again. Her strength can only go so far, and soon she is standing up, wanting to see him before he leaves. She wants to be selfish just this one last time. She arrives at Theon's door right when he is about to leave. Seeing that he is surprised to see her, she explains that she wants to say goodbye. While she is speaking, she has to will herself to not sound nervous. Theon asks about her arm, and even though she answers that she's fine, he still worries. He recalls how much he wanted to run to her when she was hurt. If he had the power, he wanted to save her. Nonetheless, he does not voice this. Rather, he expresses how glad he is that she is fine. He tells her that he wants to grow stronger so that when they see each other again, he'll be able to protect her. Oh, this is so cute. Could he really like her this time around? Will her love no longer be unrequited in this life? His words make her flustered, sheepishly thanking him for thinking of her. She isn't sure if this is the same Theon she knew. Surely this is just out of courtesy for the royal family. Theon flips her world even more when he asks that they keep in touch through letters, making her promise that she'll write back. The smile he gives her is too much for her to take, so she bids him goodbye. But before she can leave, he asks her if she and Ethan Bronte are just friends. She is kind of confused by this, but she confirms this. That is when Theon realizes that Ethan's interest is one-sided at best. After that encounter with Theon, Dorothy is back in her room, with her heart beating erratically. She recalls how worried Theon was for her. She is overwhelmed with happiness, and before she drifts to sleep, she concludes that she might have a good dream. Unfortunately, this does not come to pass because in the dream world, the events of the past occur once again. Princess Dorothy, after winning the war against the Harks, is informed that the last order of the late emperor is to defend the crown prince from her. She is not surprised that her father has abandoned her until the end. An enchanting whisper reaches her ear. At the same time, a delicate hand wraps around her blood-covered ones. Ethan Bronte tells her that she has the qualities of a great empress. He convinces her that she is the most suitable person for the throne. Dorothy at that moment is enraged as she recalls how Raymond always gets everything on a silver platter while she has to claim what is hers. Why is Raymond always right and she is wrong? She turns to Ethan and declares that she will claim the throne. After cutting through the crown prince's guards, she finds Raymond alone. Despite her ragged and violent appearance, Ray welcomes her as his beloved sister. He attempts to make a toast for her recent victories, but she dismisses this as foolishness. Instead, Ray comments that they should toast for their father's funeral. However, Dorothy is relentless, claiming that she has come to kill him. Ray looks at his sister and hopes that she doesn't regret her choices. Despite the tears in Ray's eyes threatening to fall, Dorothy makes it clear that it has always been this way. People see him as good and she as evil, always the tyrant. Dorothy attacks him with her sword, and Ray counters her attacks, asking her to surrender. However, she demands that he cut her head if he wants her to stop. She notices the look in his eyes, one expressing regret and reluctance. Why does he look like that when he is supposed to kill her? The battle continues, but Raymond suddenly gets the better of her, his sword slashing her shoulder. He sees her bleed, and all his will to fight disappears. Instead, he worries for his sister, not wanting to hurt her even more. Dorothy thinks that he's a fool for that. She plunges her sword through his chest, ending their bloody battle. Oh, Ray. I know this is in the past, but how could you, Dorothy? Dorothy smirks now that she has finally won. The throne is hers now. Ray, who is still struggling to breathe, apologizes to her for coming short. He reaches for her and wipes the tears off her face, asking her not to cry. OMG, I am literally bursting out in tears right now. Ray really is a rare person. Ray's lifeless body slumps on her shoulders, and she thinks how wrong he is. She is crying because of pure joy. She is now the reigning empress of Uvera. With a jolt, young Dorothy wakes up from her nightmare. She has to catch her breath, and she recalls how Ray hasn't changed at all. She wonders if Ray really did his best in the last round of the tournament, and if he really wants to beat her at all. Could it be that Ray merely lost? For her? Did she really claim the throne with her own strength? Her despair turns to anger. Why is she the only one plagued by these memories? Suddenly, she hears her name being called. A worried Ray enters her room, claiming that he heard noises and worries that she isn't getting rest because of her injury. He is now determined to stay by her side until she falls asleep. However, he deflates when she turns away from him, saying that there is no need for that. Ray tucks her in, and he begins talking about how much he misses their mom. Dorothy apologizes to him since she is the reason why she passed away. She tells him that without her, the three of them, Karnan, their mom, and him, would have lived happily ever after. Suddenly, Ray firmly tells her not to say that. He states that he has always been grateful that he has her. He may be a foolish older brother, but he knows that their mom does not regret giving birth to her, and it is not her fault she's gone. She is taken aback by his words, but she still calls him a fool. But he is not affected by this. Rather, he asks her to go back to Lampas with him because she is injured. Of course she refuses, so he asks if he can visit her instead. Honestly, he is the sweetest person there is. He goes quiet after a while, only for her to discover that he has fallen asleep. She tries to make him go back to his own room, but he ends up getting comfortable in her bed instead. She decides not to waste her breath and lets him sleep next to her for the night. As she stares at his sleeping face, she wonders how things would have been if she hadn't killed him in the past. The next morning, Clara is greeted with the adorable sight of the two of them sleeping next to each other. How cute! I hope they grow closer soon. As promised, Ray has been doing whatever Dorothy asks of him. From pouring her tea to getting her a blanket, Raymond is taking his big brother duties seriously. Unfortunately for him, Dorothy is cunning beyond her years. She manages to make Ray do something he hates. She tricked him into studying. At first, she tells him to get a pen and lots of paper. She orders him to write for her, and in no time, she is making him recall the lessons about the study of kingship. Because Ray wants to do whatever Dorothy wants, he forces himself to recall his lesson. A neat little trick if you ask me. How clever, Dorothy. Ray brushes the topic of the letters he has been sending her. He is relieved when she informs him that she did receive them, even though Dorothy never once replied. He doesn't want her to be lonely because she is alone. But Dorothy claims that she likes being alone. Suddenly, Ray asks her why she hates him, more than willing to fix whatever it is for her. My gosh, Ray continues to make me want to cry. She is surprised by his question and wonders if he can really fix it if she tells him. There are so many things she hates about him. She hates that he is so foolish but so nice, that he can wield the spirit of the light and she can't, that he received more than she had. Most of all, she hates that he died at her hands in the past. Rather than answer him, she asks him why he gave up in the middle of their match. Figuring that she is talking about the tournament, he clarifies that he did not give up. He was just worried about her. She then tells him that what she doesn't like is that he is so good and nice, while she is just evil. He is confused by her statement, and rather than explaining, she tells him that a fool can never understand. She then says that she wants to rest. She knows that he'll be hurt if she is honest with him. That is when he promises to come within the top 50 of his class in the next exam. He even makes her pinky swear to seal his promise. Even though she is annoyed by his childishness, she wraps her pinky around his. Meanwhile, in the Bronte household, Jonathan is hysterical that Ethan did not tell him that Dorothy was the Imperial Princess. Ethan, who obviously did not tell him on purpose, comes up with a devious reason. Jonathan begins calling him names. At that moment, his mother arrives, witnessing the cruelty of her son. She instantly comes to the crying Ethan's rescue. She punishes Jonathan by canceling the party he is planning for his friends. Jonathan is enraged to see his mother doting over Ethan. Ethan, in turn, asks their mother if he can visit the princess to see how she's doing. Lady Bronte is moved by how thoughtful he is, unable to resist his angel-like features. Ethan asks Jonathan to come with him, but as expected, his brother refuses, much to the annoyance of Lady Bronte. Ethan then tells her that he'll just go alone. Truth is, he wasn't really planning to go with Jonathan in the first place. He can't let Dorothy meet his scum of a brother. Ethan really is manipulative, isn't he? He clearly acted like he wanted Jonathan to come so that their mother could see him as the dutiful one while getting Jonathan in trouble. This kid is a master of deceit. Clara worries that the soup she's made for the princess lacks something, so she makes Stefan try it. However, as usual, Stefan does not say a word after tasting it. Clara is devastated, thinking that his silence means that the soup is not good. Right then, Stefan suddenly speaks, albeit slowly, telling her that it is delicious. Clara is delighted, however she hits him with her fist playfully for not saying so earlier. Unfortunately, Stefan is still holding the soup and it spills all over his shirt. She tries to help him by wiping it with a towel, but like the wind, Stefan speedily steps back and his face is blushing. Before she can help him clean up, Stefan bolts as fast as he can. Stefan sure is acting sus. Could it be that that cutie likes Clara? Meanwhile, Dorothy is on a balcony, quietly admiring the sea, when Ethan arrives, apologizing for being late. He then tells her that he worries that her injury will interfere with her swordsmanship, aware of how much she likes it. Dorothy assures him that it is just a fracture and will eventually heal. Ethan then mentions that it is a bit windy, and she explains that she's enjoying the fresh air. In a gentlemanlike manner, he places his coat around her shoulder, sweetly telling her to take care of herself. I'm starting to see the notoriously charming Ethan Bronte of the future. This kid knows his way with words indeed. Is it a good thing? We'll find out. Moments later, Ethan presents her with a gift. She tries to tell him that he didn't have to, but claims that his family bears the responsibility for her injury, so he can't visit her empty-handed. He helps her unravel it, revealing a beautiful handkerchief with an enchanting sword embroidered on it. She thanks him sincerely for the thoughtful gift. She thinks that the sword design is quite unique, especially since Ethan had it custom-made. Ethan then makes a request. Shyly, he asks if he can write something on her cast. Dorothy is filled with disbelief because this kind of behavior is something that she expects from Ray, but Ethan? Regardless, she agrees with the harmless request, much to Ethan's glee. Not long after, Ethan is gently holding her injured arm while writing on her cast. When he is done, Dorothy is moved by the sweet words he has written. He tells her that the beautiful pearl will shine dazzlingly after a long and dark period of healing from deep wounds. Ethan really is strangely perspective. I feel like he's really attuned to Dorothy. When Ethan asks if he can visit her again, she only has to look at his bright expression for her to agree. A month later, a most unwelcome letter arrived for her. It's from the royal palace. Is Karnan summoning her back? The content of the letter is not what she expected. It is an order from her ever-loving father. Emphasis on the sarcasm? Telling her to play her part as the royal princess. A royalty from Hark is headed their way, and she's expected to greet them. Her encounter with the Harks in her past life was unpleasant. When she claimed the throne, she expanded her empire, and one of the victims of this was Hark. For a second, she tries to recall the reason for Hark's sacrifice. She then remembers that it was all because of none other than Ethan Bronte. Monica, the fiancée of Prince Nereus of Hark, fell in love with Ethan. The whole thing was bound to be a disaster, but Ethan savored every moment of the chaos. Monica broke off the engagement with the prince, and Nereus was enraged, understandably so. So when Nereus takes the throne, his first move is to attack the empire of Uvera, and she remembers going to battle with Ethan himself. Ethan and Nereus were bound to be arch enemies, and she admits that she used to enjoy watching Ethan torment the hot-tempered prince. However, in this second life, things have to change. She sure hopes the Bronte family won't send Ethan to greet the Prince of Hark. It will not end well if they meet each other. But even if they do, she may influence them to get along instead. If she plays her cards right, she may be able to cross off number 3 on her How to Be Good list, which is to save 1,000,000 lives. If she prevents the war with Hark from ever happening, another goal will be achieved. With that, she asks for a carriage to take her to the Bronte Manor. Because her visit is so sudden, Ethan is surprised to see her in his home, instantly fussing over her comfort. Ethan may be manipulative, but he sure is sweet to our princess. Not one to beat around the bush, Dorothy brings up the upcoming visit of the people from Hark. She is sipping her tea as she listens to Ethan talk about what he knows about the visit. So when Ethan mentions that he is thinking about joining the greeting party, Dorothy inelegantly spits out her tea. In her panic, she shouts at him, telling him that he can't. Ethan is taken aback by her behavior, so Dorothy needs to come up with something because she can't let him face Nereus now, for he will surely insult him for being born out of wedlock. She doesn't want Ethan to be hurt. No matter how complicated their relationship is, I can tell that they care for one another deeply. That is when she remembers Clara rambling about some fortune teller. She hurriedly blurts out that she had a tarot reading, and tells him that she's learned that if he meets someone from Hark, the energy of death will grow stronger. However, his reaction is not what she expected. He starts laughing with a bright blush on his face. Apparently, he is quite pleased that she asked a fortune teller about him. Dorothy, upon realizing what he is implying, frantically explains that it was just for fun. Even though he doesn't believe in tarot reading, he will do as she wishes. Aww, gosh, they are so adorable. Hearing this relieves Dorothy of her worries, so she happily thanks him for agreeing. However, in return, he wants her to grant him a wish. He wants to be her escort at her debutante ball. I gotta hand it to you, Ethan. You sure think in advance. Because of Ethan's request, the memory of her debutante ball comes rushing into her mind. In her past life, being the escort of the outcast princess was deemed a punishment, so nobody wished to be her escort. Raymond suggested that his best friend Theon be her escort. Theon had no choice but to obey. But even though he was basically forced, it was the day that she fell in love with him. It was the happiest moment in her past life, but she can barely recall the expression on his face back then. She can only wonder if the beginning of her love for him was the start of his unhappiness. After that, Karnan pursued her engagement to Theon to strengthen his hold on the Friede dukedom. She is pulled from memory lane by Ethan, so she turns to him once again. She tells him that the debutante ball won't be happening soon, but he is persistent, asking her to promise with a pinky swear. My God, this kid looks like an angel! No wonder Dorothy can't resist his cuteness. Dorothy decides to agree with him because having an escort is a good thing, convinced that no one will want to dance with her anyway. Besides, she knows that she will not be engaged or married to Theon this time around. Oh, I don't know what to feel about that. Ethan is practically glowing when they seal their promise with their pinkies. A few days later, Princess Dorothy is introduced to Prince Nereus Pons of Hark, and he is as nasty as we expected. Yuck! The first thing that comes out of his mouth is his comment that the princess's appearance is not bad. What? Is this supposed to be a prince? He clearly lacks manners. Dorothy is already contemplating going on a stabbing spree because of this arrogant brat. The prince then decides to strike a sensitive nerve for Dorothy. He points out that she can't even wield the spirit of the light. He then shows off his ability to wield the spirit of water. Unlike the Millionaires and the Friede, the Pons family maintains a close bond with the spirits, which explains Nereus' arrogance. Not one to back down, she points out that since she's an imperial princess, her status is equivalent to that of a king of a small nation such as Hark. Burn! That is how you pull ranks, ladies and gentlemen. With a glint in her eyes, she remembers how she easily subdued the King of Hark without even wielding the spirits. However, the prince still refuses to show her respect, even pointing out that she couldn't even get into a pisthme. Their argument quickly escalates, and Dorothy ends up challenging him to a sword fight. If she wins, he will have to give her the due respect owed to an imperial princess. Nereus is so full of himself and so confident of his swordsmanship that he does not think twice about accepting the challenge. Frankly, this is his mistake. It does not take long before his sword is knocked out of his hand. Dorothy is clearly the superior between them when it comes to duels. Turns out, other than having no manners, Nereus is also a sore loser. When he sees the smirk on Dorothy's face, he uses the spirit of water to trap Dorothy in a bubble of water. Dorothy is having trouble breathing. She is basically drowning in midair. This Nereus creature is getting on my nerves. You are going to get what's coming for you for sure. The prince continues on insulting her lack of affinity to the spirits, even mentioning that Hark can easily overtake Uvera because she lacks spirit-wielding powers. Dorothy is angered by this. Using her sword, she cuts through the water, dispersing it with a single strike. The prince is surprised that such a thing is even possible. Dorothy dismisses Clara's and Stefan's concerns, and even though she almost drowned, she menacingly walks towards Nereus. A dangerous glint is in her eyes as she challenges him to grab his sword once again. He justifies that using the spirit in battle is acceptable, but she tells him to use it all he wants. Despite this, he still loses the second round, a testament that he is no match for our Dorothy. She warns him that even without the spirit, she can take on Hark, so he better respect her. Right on, queen! Clara is lovingly brushing Dorothy's hair, concerned about the princess's well-being. Because of recent events, Clara wants her to get checked by the doctor, but she insists that she is fine. However, she gets lost in thought. She regrets what she just did because it brings back her feeling of wanting to crush someone else to dominate again. She begins thinking that it is time for her to lay down her sword for a while. At that moment, a frantic Ethan enters her room and worries about her as usual. He has heard that she was injured because of the prince. She eases his worries, even though deep inside she is contemplating how useless she is for not being able to wield the spirit. Ethan once again pulls her from her dark thoughts, telling her that even though she says that she's fine, her face clearly shows that she is not. He takes her hand and asks her once again if she is truly all right. He really knows her, doesn't he? I know it's kind of early, but I kind of am rooting for him now. When she doesn't reply, he volunteers instead to play the violin for her. He is very enthusiastic to show her his skill. Ethan plays from the heart, and Dorothy is in awe of his talent. Even Clara and the ever-silent Stefan are impressed by him. Dorothy also compliments him, and Ethan is bashful about all the flattery. Suddenly, a knock on the door announces the arrival of Prince Nereus. Ethan's demeanor changes entirely because of the presence of the boy who bullied the princess. Dorothy definitely cannot let Ethan and Nereus meet right now, so she frantically tells Ethan to hide. She pushes him behind the curtain with Stefan guarding him. In the rudest manner, Nereus enters her room by shoving her out of the way. Gosh, this kid really needs a lesson in manners and etiquette. Apparently, he comes to apologize for attacking her, but he does so in the most condescending way possible. Dorothy has to clench her fist because of how proud of his ego Nereus is, but she reluctantly accepts his apology. He then tells her that his father has invited her to a dinner banquet as a sign of his sincerity. Since Dorothy can't refuse the king, she agrees. However, before she can exit the room, Nereus asks her if she was the one playing the violin earlier. Oh, no, he heard Ethan! Dorothy is quick to deny that she plays the instrument, claiming that he just heard wrong. In order to stop him from being curious, she asks him to lead the way to his father. When they leave, Ethan comes out behind the curtain in a manner that gives the stoic Stefan chills. After that tedious event of having to deal with the Harks, Dorothy is done following Karnan's orders to entertain these people again. She then instead asks Clara if they have received the monthly gifts from the boy yet. Clara answers that they have not, so Dorothy worries that something has happened to the redhead boy. Right then, someone calls for attention. It is the redhead boy Joey. One of the servants is trying to stop him, but he insists on speaking with the princess. He made her remember her promise that he'd find her if he was in great need. Giving her the potatoes he's brought, he bows in front of her, begging her to help him. Dorothy and Joey are in a carriage as he tells her about his predicament. It turns out that his father owes Lord Duncan a debt, which is why he and his sibling have been sent to the mine to pay for it. How horrible! How can a father do this to their children? Joey is beyond worried about the conditions of the mine, especially about how it will affect his little brother. Dorothy is aware that mines hire children, and she can believe that poor, powerless children are being subjected to harsh conditions. And so after some thought, she promises that she will save Joey's brother, but not his father. She will do this on one condition. Later on, Dorothy meets Lord Duncan and presents him a chest filled with gold bars. How do you say you're rich AF without saying that you are? Well, just be like Dorothy and slap people with your riches. The Lord, of course, is astounded like any normal human being would be. Dorothy explains that she wishes to pay the debt of Mr. Gert and free the children working in his mines. She asks him not to use children as labor in the mines again. The man is obviously easily blinded by riches. However, he does tell her that this is not a matter that she should be concerned with. Dorothy is well aware of this because even in her previous life as the Emperor, she tried to abolish child labor. But she was heavily criticized for this. Once again, she was blamed for all the misfortunes this brought about, proclaiming her a tyrant as usual. This time around, she ensures that Mr. Gert's debt is settled at the moment. Everything else has their own time. When it is time for them to retrieve Joey's brother, Dorothy and Stefan decides to disguise themselves as peasants before entering their area. Joey is confused by this, claiming that he can get his brother on his own, but Dorothy insists. She thinks that their father will not let them go easily, but since Stefan is with them, he can easily deal with the children's father. Wait a minute. Can I just say that Stefan is such an eye candy? He is tall, dark, and handsome. OMG. I shouldn't be simping over the Princess Knight, but I am not ashamed. And so, despite the odd looks they are getting from being out of place, the three have made their way to the Gert's residence, which is more like a little shack than anything else. That is where they meet Poe, Joey's little brother. The little kid is a little apprehensive about meeting her, but his brother tells him all about how the princess has come to save them. Poe then shyly whispers to his brother that he thinks Dorothy is pretty. Aww, how adorable. Suddenly, there is a commotion. The children's father has arrived, and he is not letting his children go with the princess. Fortunately, Dorothy is right to bring Sir Stefan along, because one stern look from him is all it takes for Mr. Gert to step back. Dorothy will take care of the children from now on because their father is clearly incapable of that. She brought the boys to her home. She gives them nice clothes to wear and presents them with enough food to eat. In exchange for helping them, she wants them to serve her so they will have to learn proper etiquette and manners befitting a servant of a royal princess. Joey is deeply moved by the princess's actions. He originally thought that rich people were rotten, and he was terrified for his brother. But seeing the princess now? Maybe Her Highness is a better person than he thought. To show the princess how grateful he is to her, Joey wants to present her with an apple pie as a gift in the near future, since for him, it is the best food in the world. When they are adults, he will be able to earn enough money to buy apples and make her an apple pie. What an innocent dream. Joey, despite how foul he acted during the tournament, is actually really sweet and pure. It really is a good thing that our princess helped them. They begin having their meals, and the boys are enjoying the best meal they've ever had. When she tells Joey that he should try the steak, he declares that she is the kindest person he has ever met. Dorothy is a little confused that it only takes a piece of steak to be kind, but Joey clarifies that he means that it's because of how she saved them from their father. She brought them to her home and gave them nice clothes and food to eat. Little Poe agrees with his brother wholeheartedly. Dorothy is affected by this declaration. She thinks that the title is unfitting, for it is more appropriate if she is called the worst person in the world. Oh, Dorothy, you've come so far, dear. You've changed. Stop being hard on yourself. Rather than dwell on this, she announces that they will have dessert now. Because Joey has mentioned his fondness for apple pie earlier, she has instructed the servants that they will have it for dessert. Upon seeing the gorgeous apple pie, the boys are amazed, and Joey is close to tears at this point. He is so touched at this point that he ends up using foul language, much to the princess's annoyance. Meanwhile, all the way in the capital, Theon is fondly reading a letter from Dorothy. She is recalling the events that have occurred in her life, particularly about her taking in the Gert boys. He is amused that she writes so formally and thinks that she is too kind for her own good. These two really are pen pals now. I hope that they will have a less turbulent relationship this time around. These two deserve peace. He is about to write a reply when he is surrounded by darkness, and there's a feeling that makes him clench his fist with his hands. What is happening to his body? Oh no! Theon! Back in Dorothy's home, Ethan has come to visit, and as usual, his charm has captured the servants again. That is when he finally meets the two boys that Dorothy has technically adopted. He is suddenly surrounded by an ominous aura, even though he is outwardly smiling. Uh-oh, Ethan's dark side is showing again. When he finally greets the princess, he takes her hand and commends her for doing such a great thing. He tells her that he wants to be friends with them too. Dorothy sees nothing wrong with that, and since she has to do something anyway, she asks Ethan to hang out with the boys for now. When the princess leaves, Ethan greets the two boys kindly, and Joey instantly recognizes him as the Duke's son. Ethan asks them what they do in the castle, and they answer that their task is to learn how to read. Suddenly, Ethan's expression changes into an accusatory one, claiming that since they aren't working, they are basically just causing trouble for the princess. Joey feels bad that he is not doing enough for Dorothy, so Ethan tells him that he has an idea. This can't be good. Ethan, what are you doing? I was actually starting to like you. Ethan and Dorothy are together when Joey and Poe excitedly go to them, looking particularly excited. They then show her that they have picked some berries for her. The two promise to do their best for her from then on. Dorothy smiles fondly at the gesture because no one has ever done such a thing for her before. However, her smile turns to a frown when she notices the piece of cloth where the berries are placed on top. It's Theon's handkerchief. Her entire aura shifts as she coldly asks Joey where he got the handkerchief from. Joey sheepishly answers that he used it because the berries were dripping with water after they washed it, so he laid the handkerchief underneath it. Dorothy icily tells them to not lay their hands on other people's belongings and not to enter people's rooms without permission. Joey notices that she is displeased, and Poe starts weeping. Joey tells her that Ethan told them that the princess would like it if they prepared her some snacks. Ethan clarifies that he simply gave them the advice because they wanted to do something for her. When Joey tells Dorothy that it was Ethan who told them to lay something underneath the fruits, Ethan, with a regretful face, answers that he did not expect them to use Theon's handkerchief for this. Dorothy asks the brothers to leave, and when Joey looks back, he sees Ethan snickering at him. Ah, Ethan, you're slipping! Stop being mean! When they are alone once again, Dorothy slaps Ethan on the face. What Ethan is not aware of is that Dorothy knows him more than anyone else, which means she is aware of his manipulations. Dorothy has realized that the two of them are still the same as before. She was arrogant to think that she could change him for the better, but how could she when she couldn't even discipline herself? In the past, Ethan had a strange habit of dropping his belongings just so ladies would pick it up for him. He felt a sense of superiority when noble ladies bowed their heads before him. She was the one who discovered this hobby of his, which marked the beginning of their sin. Their evil meshed together perfectly, the tyrant and the traitor. Their evil had taken root until she herself had taken the crown not meant for her. When Theon discovered what she had done, he wept upon seeing the corpse of his best friend. She told him that he would be happy for her because she had become the emperor. Even so, he continued to weep no matter how she begged him to smile. Dorothy is standing high and proud, even though the people around her are shouting that she is not suitable to be the emperor. Theon stands in front of her, telling her that she is not in the right mind to go on like this. She then extends her bloodied hand for him to take, asking him to tell her what to do, and she will not hesitate to do it. However, rather than holding her hand, he sneers in the most hateful way possible. In the past, Dorothy usually woke from such nightmares. Her insomnia had gotten worse after Raymond's death. The people of the Empire still spread rumors about how she killed the loyal nobles. Ethan told her how those people were merely blinded by deep-rooted traditions. Worst of all, Theon hasn't given her any proper attention. She thought about how Theon must hate her. Despite having everything she had ever wanted, she still felt like she had nothing when she thought of Theon. No matter how much Ethan assured her that he would serve her forever, it was no use. And yet, despite this, he still betrayed her. Wow, the relationship between these two was really toxic. When Ethan informed him that Theon kept on sending letters to Lady Julia, she recalled just how sad yet affectionate Theon's expression became every time he received a letter from that woman, an expression he never once showed to her. She was angered because she had more than what Julia had and could give Theon whatever he desired. And so she decided to build a new palace, all for Theon. Her orders forced the architects, craftsmen, and even the gardeners to work no matter the circumstances. She wanted to engrave her love for Theon on the Great Palace, meant to be a heritage of humanity. The nobles were forced to appease her whims, a quick death given to those who even so much as mentioned her late brother. Despite the violence she displayed and her erratic temper, the nobles praised her. declaring her the best monarch there is. Also, they don't find themselves at the end of her sword. As she sat in front of her vanity with the maid styling her hair, she despaired that Theon, despite her building a magnificent palace for him, had yet to see her. Suddenly, she noticed her gaunt face in the mirror, and she was startled that the only beautiful thing about her was the jewels she wore. In her rage, she snatched the earring straight off her ear, not caring that she started bleeding. Ethan instantly came rushing in, worried about her, especially when he saw her hurt. However, they were interrupted by Theon's arrival. Dorothy was overjoyed to see him again, but she soon found out that he was merely there to confront her about stripping the Delavina family of their title and forbidding them from entering the Empire. When she told him to just forget about Julia, Theon was enraged even more, reminding her about how much he cared about Julia. Hearing this from him blinded her with rage, and she raised her hand against him, slapping him straight in the face. She told him that he belonged to her, but he countered that he had never once sworn to be hers. She regretted her actions immediately. She felt vile that she had struck the one she loved. He rushed away, and she attempted to go after him. However, Ethan caught her arm, telling her to give the Duke some time. He comforted her as she wept. Dorothy gave Theon everything she could to Theon, from expensive gems to magnificent greenhouses. But all of those changed nothing. She'd rather that he openly resent her than ignore her entirely. So when Ethan informed her that Julia died because of an accident, Dorothy was overjoyed. Now Theon would finally look at her. She rushed to find Theon, but when she did, she saw him surrounded by literal darkness, clutching a dead bird in his hand. Dorothy was shocked and didn't know what to do upon witnessing Theon's power. Theon, with tears in his eyes, asked her if, despite seeing him like this, she still loved him. Dorothy knelt in front of him and held his hand, and she told him that no matter how disgusted or resentful he was to her, she would still love him. Hearing this prompted Theon to ask her if this was the reason why she killed Julia. Dorothy instantly denies having to do anything with what happened to Julia. However, he cared not for her explanation, for he was convinced that she did do it. He forcefully grabbed her wrist and told her that her ambition was what killed him. Sure enough, Theon left her in the most permanent way there was. His death was the only thing she saw day and night. She was so lost in grief that the nobles were able to easily dispose of her. She was sentenced to death because of the crimes she had committed. The person she saw before her died was none other than Ethan. He asked her to say a word before she was executed, but she didn't say anything. He knelt before her, telling her that he could still get her out of this situation if only she asked for his help. However, she told him that she was fine. She saw this as her punishment for bringing pain to so many people. Because of her, Theon died, and she didn't want to live without him. Ethan was enraged that she was doing this all for that man, but she merely replied that she had failed and become the devil. All she hoped for was that he became a brilliant ruler. She believed that she was the most evil person in that world, and she wished that she had died earlier, before Theon took his own life and before she killed Raymond. If so, people would have been happier. Dorothy comes back to reality. She could not believe that those memories suddenly flashed in her mind. However, she was sure about one thing. She and Ethan are so alike, which is why they only make each other more evil. She no longer has the confidence to be with him. She turns away from him, but he hugs her from the back, begging for her forgiveness. He admits that he was wrong, but she wrenched herself away from him. She will no longer be deceived by him, but she softens when she sees him crying. He admits that he only did it because he was jealous and didn't want to be abandoned by her. Jeez, this kid has issues. Scratch that. They both have issues. I really hope they can still mend their friendship despite everything. With shaking arms, he begs her not to hate him. Dorothy then realizes that she doesn't really know him. Can he really change? Carnon receives a report about how well Dorothy handled the Harks during their visit. He has been informed about the charitable work she's been doing in Certain. She has a great reputation among the nobility, and some people even consider her a genius. Hearing all these makes the Emperor think about Dorothea again. He considered giving her an entrance exam to Episteme to test her intelligence. However, he doesn't believe she will pass anyway because she's a millionaire who is lacking. Grr, this man is just so wretched, isn't he? I really despise you to the bones, you good-for-nothing creature. Are you supposed to be a wise emperor? Meanwhile, back in Certain, Stefan is recalling when he first met Dorothy. He was one of the knights who saw her in the desert when she was kidnapped. When he got to his place, she did recognize him, and he hesitated to shake her hand, fearing that she would break. When the princess asked him to teach her his swordsmanship, he was excited because he could finally hold a sword again. But then he witnessed just how gifted the princess was, and he understood the joy of teaching. He thought that this child was blessed by the gods and that she was meant to be loved by everyone. But then she told him about her nightmares and how she was desperate to be good. He realized that she was destined to not receive love, all because she was blamed for her mother's death. It was said that the emperor was so enraged that he almost strangled the newborn to death. How horrible! My anger for Karnan is deep-seated at this point. He wonders if someone told her about what happened during her birth that had caused her to feel guilty. If only he was as gentle and talkative as Clara, he could tell the princess that it wasn't her fault and that she was a lovely and kind child. Suddenly, he noticed that Joey was creeping behind a bush. He stood up and the boy was so surprised that he fell to the ground. When they settled to sit together by the tree, Joey asks him how he can become a knight. Joey, thinking that Stefan will not reply, starts ranting that he probably won't become a knight because he's a commoner. When he realizes that Stefan can speak, he insists on learning to be a knight even more. He'd rather die fighting an enemy than be dragged to a mine again. Also, he wants to pay back the princess for helping them. When Stefan tells the princess about wanting to teach Joey, she agrees easily enough. But when he asks her if she will be practicing swordsmanship again, she defeatedly answers that she doesn't want to hold a sword anymore. Even when Stefan mentions that she obviously likes it, she cannot let herself indulge in it, since it is her competitiveness that makes her want to hold a sword. Feelings that she absolutely cannot have. Stefan was saddened to see the princess give up something she enjoyed. Ethan despairs every time he thinks that the princess probably hates him now. Even though she accepted his apology, she has also been actively avoiding him, refusing to see him every time he attempts to come over. If only his little trick was not discovered, none of this would have happened. He starts getting angry, letting his temper get the better of him. But then he remembers that the princess won't like such behavior, so he shouldn't think like that. No, I really want him to change. I want both him and Dorothy, our little cupcakes, to have the happiness they deserve. He is determined to do anything to make the princess happy. He thinks about the things he can do to make it up to her, and he finally has an idea. He decides to look for the famous glowing flower native to Seratin. One so beautiful that people came from all over just to see it. He is sure that if he gives it to the princess, she will love it. And so little Ethan sets out to look for this wondrous flower in the forest. He looks all over, but he almost always comes up empty-handed. But he is not willing to give up because he really wants to see the princess happy. Suddenly, he catches a glimpse of something glowing high above a steep slope. Meanwhile, Dorothy is lamenting the fact that Theon's handkerchief is now stained. This is the reason why she can't bear to see Ethan's face. This object is important to her because it's the only item given to her by Theon. She knows that she has promised not to be greedy in this life, but maybe it's okay to want something so small. No, Dorothy, you shouldn't be so hard on yourself. Suddenly, her attention is stolen when Clara, along with a maid from the Bronte house, arrives. The woman was wordly asking if she had been with Ethan. She then learns that Ethan has been searching for a flower to give her, turning to the forest alone. He hasn't returned since, and the poor maid is beyond worried for the young master. Speaking of Ethan, he is currently climbing the slope to reach the flower. Despite the wounds on his hands and the dirt on his once pristine clothes, he keeps going. Finally, he manages to reach the flower, but then he slips. He stumbles down the slope. Meanwhile, Dorothy along with Stefan are in the forest calling for Ethan. Dorothy becomes even more worried because it is already dark and they are yet to find him. Right then, she notices something glowing. She goes towards it and it guides her to Ethan's location. She finds Ethan in a pitiful situation. He is on the ground and he is crying nonstop. Oh, poor Ethan. I really can't bear seeing him cry. He tells her not to come near her because he is messy and ugly. He doesn't want to see her in this state. Dorothy is moved that he was willing to go through all this just to make her happy. She reaches for his face and begins wiping off some of the dirt. Ethan moves away, afraid to dirty her dress, but she insists that she doesn't care. It doesn't matter to her if he's messy and ugly. This is touching. These two really are meant to find each other, for better or worse. She reaches for the flowers meant for her and places some of them behind her ear. With a bright smile filled with joy, she tells him that what matters to her is the heart. She also places a flower behind his ear, and she thanks him sincerely. Dorothy has noticed that Joey and Poe have been avoiding her. She wonders if they are hurt by her behavior from last time. Was she too cruel? She doesn't know what to do. While she is lost in thought, she hears a knock from outside her room. When she opens the door, she is greeted by the siblings holding a piece of apple pie. Poe enthusiastically tells her that it is a gift for her. Poe is guilty of making the princess angry last time, so he wants to give her a real present. The little boy offers her the first apple pie he has ever made. Oh, how sweet! I love how Dorothy is now surrounded by good people. She deserves love. The princess recalls that in the past she wasn't impressed by the food served to her, but now that she receives food that was prepared by people who thought of her, she feels warm all over. With a bright smile, she tells the siblings that the pie is delicious. But in the middle of the happy atmosphere the home has created for herself, a hurricane in the form of her father's messenger threatens to ruin her peace. She is ordered to go back to the capital. Karnan ruins everything! I really hope that guy gets what he deserves. She is angered by this news. Once again, the princess in the background is needed somewhere else. She's only treated as a princess when they need her, just like in her past life. Her all-consuming anger disappears, however, upon hearing Poe's soft voice, asking her if she's leaving. She knows that the people who really cherish her are in this place, but for now, she has to stay in the royal palace. However, she will no longer live a life dictated by Karnan anymore. At Episteme, Theon is walking in the hallway when Ray playfully shoves him to surprise him. However, Theon reacts shockingly, harshly wrenching himself away from him. Our little ray of sunshine, get it? Ray, as in Raymond? Never mind. Apologizes for startling him. He is merely worried that he is sick because he wasn't in their history class. Theon reasons that he is just tired, and he sure looks like he is. Theon, what is wrong? However, Ray notices that his hand is shaking. Before they can talk about it more, they hear Julia's enthusiastic voice calling out to Theon. He instantly excuses himself from the Crown Prince, promising to speak with him tomorrow. Ray watches the two walk away, but he still knows that something has changed. He wonders if Theon will tell him. All he can do is hope that it is nothing serious. Later on, Theon and Julia are talking. She asks him if he is really okay, mentioning that he is looking worse and worse. Suddenly, Theon blurts out that the bird has died. He tells her that a bird just dropped dead while he was having a walk that morning. The bird died in front of him because darkness appeared around him. The poor boy is beside himself, going out of his mind because of guilt. Julia panics as she watches darkness engulf the room they are in. Julia tries to comfort him, but he despairs that he can wield the spirit of darkness. Silence, darkness, and death are the work of his powers. He is the first freed in 100 years to have ever manifested the spirit of darkness. Theon worries that his destructive power will hurt someone someday. Julia comforts him by saying that their blood must have faded enough that it won't become strong enough to hurt people. Nonetheless, she informs him that she has written a letter to Frieda to inform his family about his situation. She also advises him that he talk to Ray about it, but Theon answers that Ray once told him that he communicates with the light spirit. However, unlike him, the spirit of darkness comes and goes as it pleases, doing whatever it wants. Like a tyrant. Yikes. Quite a comparison. Julia worries for him, but he assures her that he can still hold on until the letter from Frieda arrives. Julia then promises to help him if anything happens. Right then, Theon remembers that he wasn't able to reply to the princess's letter. He can only wish that he could control this power before they meet again. As Duke Bronte notices everything that's been happening with his son Ethan and Princess Dorothea, he thinks that Princess Dorothea is very interested in his son. The very first time that she went to the mansion, she also looked for Ethan and doesn't refuse his invitations whenever they arrive. Even when Ethan disappeared into the mountains, she went directly there to find him. Despite his background being imperfect since he's treated as an abandoned child, Princess Dorothea is still with him. Duke Bronte immediately talks to his wife, Duchess Bronte, about his idea. Since Princess Dorothea seems very interested with Ethan these days, he thinks of bringing him alone in this high-class banquet that he'll be going to. However, the Duchess thinks her husband's crazy. He's thinking of letting the world know of his illegitimate child with some common pub girl. The Duchess questioned him if she had ever discriminated against Ethan, knowing she didn't. Instead, she raised him and let him stay there as if it's her duty. The Duke explains that Ethan is old enough to see the world and know what it looks like. However, the Duchess shouts at him, saying that she's embarrassed to go out and have to smile as she carries her husband's child with another woman. Ethan's very obedient and beautiful, and that's what drove her crazy. She just can't love him as her own. Suddenly, the Duke sees Ethan standing by the door. His eyes look so shocked, and he runs towards his room. The Duke follows him and finds the boy sitting on his bed. Slowly, Ethan looks at him with tears coming from his eyes, asking if they're ashamed of him. The Duke tries to comfort him, but the question still lies in Ethan's head. They keep hiding him, they argue because of him, and he wonders if it's because he can't go to the Episteme. Despite having no fault, Ethan looks down and apologizes for not working harder and for letting his parents down. It used to be like that too back when Ethan was still 8 years old. He insisted on going to the episteme with his brother Jonathan. However, due to an accident on the way there, he was unable to take the entrance exam. Regardless, the Duke is sure Ethan won't pass the exam anyway because of the fencing and horse racing part. Duke Bronte then consoles the boy again, who still thinks he's at fault. The Duke also promises that he will never hide him from everyone, as he asks Ethan to come with him at Count Duncan's banquet, since he'll officially introduce him as his son in front of everyone. Seeing how happy his son is, Duke Bronte finally realizes how he's been neglecting his kind boy all this time. At the banquet, Dorothea feels like she already wants to go home. That is, until Duke Bronte, along with Ethan, comes and greets her. It surprises the princess. The one who came out to the elite is Ethan. She can't seem to believe it since in her previous life, the first time Ethan appears in places like this was after Jonathan died. To fill Jonathan's blank, the family brought Ethan, who always lived like a shadow under the light. Dorothea wonders what changed in the Bronte family. She tries to ask why, but all the Duke says is that he thinks that Ethan needs to learn more about the society now. Ethan shares how anxious he feels not knowing how to behave in front of people he doesn't know, but fortunately, the princess is there. If this is in her previous life, she wouldn't even imagine that reaction coming from him. Suddenly, Duke Bronte calls Ethan since the party's about to start, but before Ethan goes, he holds the princess's hand and kisses it as he bids her goodbye. Though surprised, she then remembers that he's an expert in those sort of things. Given Ethan's surprise appearance is unavoidable that the nobles wouldn't take him too kindly. Still, they'll eventually want to approach him. In the past, Ethan's influence among the elite was really great to the extent that the number of people attending a feast will depend on whether he's there or not. Nonetheless, could these changes now affect the future? Minutes before the party starts, Mrs. Duncan seems to be having trouble. The performer that they booked months ago is injured and can't come. Suddenly, Ethan walks towards her and volunteers to play the piano. He introduces himself as the second child of Duke Bronte. Knowing his background, Mrs. Duncan thinks that he's so handsome and it's such a waste to hide a son like him. She then asks him if he can play Glory by Bertwin, given that it's such a difficult piece of music for an average person. Luckily, it's the music that he practices every day. As Dorothea searches for Ethan, she hears the piano. She turns around and sees him performing on it. People are mesmerized by how well he plays. Seeing him playing the piano made Dorothea think about his past. If only he chose to be a musician instead of prime minister, he'd be so much happier then. As soon as he finished playing, he looked at Dorothea and gave her a sweet smile. Dorothea leaves and goes to the terrace, where she hears the girls who are outside talking about how compatible she is with Ethan, which she thinks is nonsense. Suddenly, Ethan appears behind her. He laughs and smiles, asking if she heard those girls and their gossip. Ethan feels good about it, but Dorothea doesn't. As he grumbles a little about how mean Dorothea is, they hear those girls talking about Dorothea's family, how they've come to an end since she can't summon spirits. All of a sudden, the girls find themselves doused with red wine. They look up and see Ethan, who's sarcastically apologizing for spilling his drink. When they look who's beside him, they see Princess Dorothea, who's calling Ethan out. He doesn't stop, however, and he tells those girls that even though the Grand Duke Fried family hasn't been able to summon darkness spirits for 100 years, they still maintain their strengths. Even though Dorothea Millionaire couldn't summon spirits, this country wouldn't fall. The girls then try to explain how they feel sorry for her because of her past traumas. However, Dorothea remarks that they don't need to feel sorry or hurt for her since she isn't so unhappy that she'll stoop to their level. She goes back inside, thinking of those people who made her happy. Unexpectedly, the king's carriage arrives, bringing a message that the king wants her to go back since her health has already recovered and there's no reason for her to stay there anymore. Dorothea already turned it down back then, so she can't comprehend how stubborn he is. Anyway, it's the king's order, and if she refuses again, she'll probably be accused of treason. Dorothy asks the guard to give her some time to prepare, but unfortunately, the king had ordered that she must be brought immediately and without delay. They already had prepared the luggage for the trip for her. Dorothea's plea for more time to say goodbye is denied again. She'd been living there for years, but she's not allowed a proper farewell? Beside Clara, the person who followed her from the palace, everyone else might have to stay here, even Joy and Poe. If those children are left behind, they will have to return to the house where their parents are hurting them. For the last time, she asks if she can write letters for them. Luckily, she's permitted. Right after she finishes, Ethan appears, asking if she'll allow him to deliver that letter to the palace, assuring her not to worry since he'll do his best to carry out her order. She's skeptical at first since a similar thing happened before, but things are different now. Right when she hands it to him, Ethan congratulates her for being able to come back to Lampas. She thanks him again, saying that she had a good time with him, but Ethan's reaction turns sad as he asks her not to say it as if it'll be the last time they'll see each other. Dorothea assures him that it won't be the last time, because whether they want it or not, their destiny will always allow them to see each other again. Right when she's about to ride the carriage, Ethan holds her hand and pulls her for a hug as he bids goodbye. Meanwhile, Ray walks around the halls wondering if Theon is hiding something from him. As he recalls, Theon seems to be absent-minded, as if he's thinking of something else. Moreover, he and Julia talk in private. This makes Ray think that Theon and Julia like each other. This makes him hysterical. Now that he thinks about it, he has to move away to make room for those two. Suddenly, he hears something emanating from a room. He follows the sound, and when he enters the room, he sees Theon in pain. When he asks Theon what happens, and with desperate eyes, he shares that he can't control the spirits. He couldn't do anything but ask Ray for help. Back to the princess, it's been 3 years since Dorothea has been there. She'd been standing in the king's office since her arrival, but she had to wait a long time for him. Dorothea asks why he called her back, and the king says that she's a millionaire. That's why she came back. She doesn't buy that explanation based on previous experiences. Dorothea wonders what's the actual reason why she's summoned. Suddenly, he asks her to take the episteme entrance exam since he heard that she's quite clever and even got complimented by the people in Hark not long ago. He even said that if she passes the exam, he might think of her differently. If this was Dorothea in the past, she would have been happy and studied hard because of those words. But now, that's not the case. She looks at her brother and adamantly refuses. However, she didn't have any choice since what he told her was an order. The exam will be held next month, and he'll invite a teacher to help her prepare for an exam. She tells him that she doesn't need a teacher, just like the king, but he just tells her to think of the royal family's honor before promptly leaving. Lying on her bed while thinking about the examination for episteme, Dorothea is surprised when Ray suddenly barges inside her room. He tries to hug her as he tells her how much he misses her. Ray also hands her beautiful yellow flowers to celebrate her coming back. Dorothea tells him that he doesn't have to do that. Unfortunately, Ray misunderstood Dorothea's intentions, thinking that she didn't like the flowers. Anyway, Ray admits that he knows about her taking the episteme entrance exam. He says it'll be great since they can go to school together and he'll be able to introduce her to his friends. Trying to avoid the topic, Dorothea asks if he's busy. He actually isn't, and he tries to make time for her. Well, she hasn't been home for a long time, and for him there is nothing more important than that moment. However, in Dorothea's mind, if only her brother tries to be more busy by studying even harder, he can be the heir and not her. In the palace, Clara is panicking since Dorothea went back home all of a sudden. She tries to see if Dorothea brought her things in her book or if she missed out on anything. Meanwhile, Joy and Poe are worried that they'll be sent back to their homes as they don't want that. They're too afraid that the princess will forget about them and throw them away. Suddenly, Ethan arrives, informing them that Dorothea made them a letter and he's just there to deliver it. Clara reads it and informs Joy and Poe that the princess asks them to come to Lampas. Their faces lit up with happiness once again, knowing that the princess didn't throw them away. Since his job there is done, Ethan excuses himself. However, Clara stops him and asks him to stay a bit for some tea. But he refuses since Dorothea isn't there and he's just a mailman. When he leaves, Joy and Poe follow him. They thank him for what he's done and apologize for what happened the last time. But as soon as Ethan looks at them, there seems to be a hint of anger in his face. He asks them not to embarrass the princess as soon as they go there. Joy didn't take that well. She gets angry and shouts at Ethan as soon as he walks away. About a month passes, and in the king's office, the king questions Dorothea about her exam scores. He is furious seeing that all of her scores are 0. Episteme has never had that score in its history. However, Dorothea sarcastically says that it's a good thing that she breaks tradition. The king furiously asks her to remember what he said. Think about the face of royalty. He can really say that Dorothea isn't thinking of this seriously. Anger consumes him as he asks Dorothea who she thinks he is. Dorothea looks at him and calmly replies that he's the king of Great Uvera, and he replies that he's her father. With that, she asks him if he even knows her birthday. To her surprise, he really does. The day the queen died. Because he considers that date as his wife's death more than his daughter's birthday, Dorothea never has had a happy celebration. On Ray's birthday, he held a party, but she didn't even get a flower on hers. She gets it. He is sad, but can he even look at her once? She exists. Never once she feels like she's his daughter. Every time she tries to ask for something, she always gets yelled at, while also being called childish, bad, and selfish. That day, he hoped that Dorothea had died and the queen had been the one to live. She can still feel it now, even if he doesn't say it. The king shouts at her, asking her to stop, but Dorothea continued on. Instead, she asks him about what happened last year when she got kidnapped. Did he hope she'll die too? In an instant, a huge slap is thrown at her, making her face red. As soon as she saw the king's reaction, she got confused. He feels the need to treat her like a stranger. Dorothea tells him that she still remembers what he said, to not make a mess. She knows he feels embarrassed about her being kidnapped, that's why he didn't tell anyone. The king tries to explain, but Dorothea cuts him off by asking if he even tried to hug her, and if he ever saw her as his child. She was 9 years old. She was 9 years old when she got kidnapped, but when she came back to nothing. He didn't even ask if she's okay, not even a hug. He hasn't even said anything to her because to him, her existence means nothing but the death of his wife. With guilt all over his face, the king calls her by her name, but Dorothea tells him that he doesn't need to call her millionaire because she never felt close to a blessing by having that name. Dorothea also says that he doesn't even need to ask her to his ceremony if he doesn't want to. Suddenly, she excuses herself and leaves. As soon as she does so, she feels relieved. She doesn't feel bothered by her millionaire father anymore. While walking in the hallway, Stefan immediately approaches her and asks if she's okay the moment he sees the huge bruise on her face. Suddenly, Dorothea cries in front of him, saying that she wants to go back to her palace. She doesn't want to be there anymore since she feels like she doesn't exist in that world. Stefan can feel her pain and hugs her, doing his best to comfort her. As the two of them walk away, Dorothea asks Stefan if it's obvious that she cried, but the bruise on her face is more obvious. Dorothea then looks at him and smiles as she thanks him for staying with her. Stefan is taken aback, but he smiles as he pats her head. Out of the blue, Theon arrived, which made Dorothea panic since she still has the bruise from earlier. The timing is always not right. Whenever Theon's around, she always has no choice but to show him that face that she doesn't want to show. However, Theon hands her some medicine to put on her injury so it will heal faster. He even tries to volunteer in putting it on, but Dorothea declines that offer, opting to do it herself. As soon as Dorothea leaves, Theo feels something. It's the power of the spirit. He should be careful in meeting people given that he hasn't controlled it yet. Anyway, in her room, Dorothea thinks of writing a letter to Ethan telling him about what happened, but she decides not to since it's all useless. Meanwhile, Ethan waits for her to contact him since he misses her very much and hopes that she's all fine. When Dorothea was born, Alice the Queen died. The king thinks that if only her life can save the queen's, he would have killed her. Ever since she's born, the king has felt nothing for her, not even love. That's why he felt for Dorothea like that for years. As years passed by, she looked more and more like the queen. Now he thinks that if only he knew she looked like that, he would have hugged her once, though his regrets only lasted for a while. The moment he knew about her not being able to summon spirits, he felt furious. Her not being able to use that ability indicates the millionaire's decline. He felt angry that the child Alice had given her life to can't even summon spirits. His confidant, Robert, asks if he could care for Dorothea even a little, since the child is a millionaire until death. However, that very fact is what the king considers the problem. Meanwhile, Ray rants to Theon about Dorothea getting 0 on the exam and subsequently getting the lowest score in history. Ray feels bad for his sister, but Theon tells him that her getting 0 means that she's smart. It's also impossible for someone to get a 0, but given that score, she for sure knows the answer and was just trying to get 0 points since she doesn't want to go to Episteme. Ray starts overthinking that his sister doesn't want to go to school with him, but Theon assures him it's not about that. Also, it's not like she doesn't like him. If she doesn't, she wouldn't receive the flowers he gave her. After that conversation, the topic then shifted to how Theon is trying to control the spirits, and how it can be bad for him if he can't do it properly. In a worst-case scenario, his lifespan might even get shorter. That's why Ray will attempt to aid him in practicing his ability by trying to strike a balance between light and darkness. Meanwhile, Dorothea sees Clara and Stefan together with Joy and Poe as they are arranging their things that they brought from the palace. They are all worried the moment they see the bruise on her face and ask if she's okay, and the person responsible for it. Seeing how much they care for her made Dorothea think that the problem isn't that she has to return to the palace. It's all about the people she's with, and now that they are here, she finally has someone whom she can call family. After being back, and though glad to have her precious friends with her, Dorothea still feels uncomfortable being so close to Karnan. Dorothea wants both Joey and Poe to stay in the palace, just like they did in the Anastas castle. though she tells them that they should learn more about royal etiquette since a single mistake could cost them their lives. The poor kids went from excitement to being afraid. Suddenly, an energetic Ray greets them with Theon smiling at the back. What a treat for the eyes! How can these two be so cute? The reason for Ray's abrupt visit is because he's been worried about Dorothea since the day she returned. She has locked herself in and refused to come out. When he brings up the apisteme or begs her to hang out with him, she seems especially uncomfortable, so he only visits with Theon when she occasionally appears to be in a good mood. Ray feels that the distance between them is diminishing, yet he still feels that she is out of reach. He fears that if he stops his efforts altogether, he will never get to see her for the rest of his life. He keeps his thoughts to himself, though, and instead, candidly and very cutely tells her he wants to see his little sister, making Dorothea gag in disgust. From being disgusted, her heart beats, as if seeing Theon for the first time. She realizes that in the past, receiving affection as small as that was enough to make her heart race, and the idea of casting Theon aside was the hardest. As she gazes at him, the complex emotions she felt when seeing Theon are gradually fading, and the days she recalled his death are also diminishing. In this lifetime, it is enough for Dorothea to be able to see his face like this. Dorothea smiles, though with a hint of heartbreak. Ray then notices the two redheads standing still, watching them. Dorothea introduces Joey and Poe, who seem to be starstruck by the Crown Prince of Uvera. However, Ray, acting as normal as one can be, talks to them with a friendly face, even inviting them to come over sometime. Dorothea is reminded of how Ray treats everyone equally without any airs. Ray doesn't even put on an imposing facade, build walls, or have charisma. She thinks she perhaps was jealous of his brightness and the ability to make everyone love him. Several years later, the beautiful Dorothea is now 16 years old. Her maid rushes forth with urgency to bring news, informing her about Lady Clara's situation. Clara hesitantly tells Dorothea that her father passed away, and she's worried that she's asking for a few days off. Dorothea comforts the sobbing Clara and tells her she shouldn't be apologizing, and that Dorothea is the one who should feel sorry. Clara tells her how fortunate it is to serve someone as affectionate as Dorothea, but Dorothea thinks differently. After Clara leaves, Dorothea realizes she has known Clara for a long time, but she doesn't know anything about her family. She believes she doesn't deserve to hear such praises because she's still someone who killed her family with her own hands, who brought the army to her father's funeral and killed her own brother as a tyrant. She wonders how someone like her can fathom the depths of Clara's sorrow. After a time, she calls for someone and tells her to send people over to help Clara with the funeral and to send a floral wreath on her behalf. The maid is shocked with such an unprecedented order. She tells Her Highness that it's against protocol. Sending a wreath in the name of a royal family is only appropriate for well-renowned nobles or high-ranking officials. It's improper to casually associate the royal family's name with a commoner, let alone a maid. Hearing how she's forbidden to send a single flower wreath to someone who's been the most devoted person to her in this lifetime, someone she considers a family, Dorothea insists on sending the flowers, and what's more, she's attending the funeral in person. Completely flabbergasted, the maid tells Her Highness that Clara's house is in the neighborhood where commoners live. Dorothea makes herself clear once more that Clara is special to her, and that she will not be left out when she's in mourning. Meanwhile, Clara is occupied with a lot of things for the funeral. A sudden knock brings her back to the present. She opened the door, and there was Stefan, who came to help her and also brought the wreath Her Highness sent. Clara is not sure if she should accept everything, but she's grateful. She's in tears, so Stefan hesitantly pats her shoulder for comfort. Rather than focusing on the dead, talk during the burial is all about the lavish wreath from the royal palace. There are several conjectures regarding Clara's rise to reputation following her close relationship with Her Highness. Her father is regarded as royalty, even in death, for producing such brilliant children. People can't really shut their mouths and mind their own business. Meanwhile, Clara expresses gratitude to Stefan, mistaking him for one of the princess's aides. He reveals he volunteered out of concern for her, having heard of her tears. Out of nowhere, a royal carriage pulls up at the funeral home. Clara is perplexed, but she's taken aback when Dorothea shows up. Dorothea arrived at such a late hour because she reasoned that arriving during a busy time would strain Clara more. Clara gives Her Highness a hug after breaking down in tears. Clara apologizes for serving Dorothea in a rundown location, but Dorothea assures her that it's okay because she came to visit their home. Clara is confused, but Dorothea can't tell her that the real reason she's there is because she doesn't know much about her, so she just asks her about her family members. Clara mentions her reclusive older brother, but to her surprise, a man enters the room in a wheelchair. Anton. Clara immediately introduces Her Highness. He bows and apologizes for not recognizing her. Anton thanked Her Highness for her kindness, especially to Clara. Dorothea tells him how Clara helped her, one of the few people who sincerely treated her family. Perhaps family is not just about a shared bloodline, but people who are able to cherish and value each other. So in that regard, she considers Clara just as important to her as family. Clara excused herself, telling them she will be preparing the tea. Hearing those from someone like her, Anton thanked her for truly cherishing his sister. He tells her how hard it must have been for Clara to carry the family. He feels ashamed that he's holding her back, and that Clara must have wanted to do many things herself. Anton confides in Dorothea about his struggles with disability and societal prejudice. Dorothea didn't know that everyone was struggling in places she wasn't aware of. Meanwhile, Stefan finds Clara outside, seemingly feeling not okay. Stefan can see through Clara's facade and hears her pain from the inside. She admits that she is tired of her family's negativity and is reluctant to introduce her brother because of fears of what people would think of him. Stefan comforts her, telling her that the princess recognizes her goodness. And so, Stefan swiftly takes her in for a hug. Oh, Clara! I am having butterflies in my stomach watching these two. Okay, back to the story. As he brushes her hair, tears continue to rush down Clara's face. They hug each other tightly, but they eventually go back and separate. After gathering their thoughts, they return to Dorothea, who counsels Clara to rely on Stefan for support because she'll be busy for a while. Clara's face is full of curiosity, so Dorothea tells her that she has something she must do. The next day, Dorothea completes her plans to establish support facilities for people with disabilities. Remembering Anton's words, she wants to help him not get humiliated by others and be able to work. Not just job opportunities, but also their medical care and wishes to create a community as a support group. But just like in her past life, when she established a support facility for people with disabilities, she failed to get support from the royal family. They see it as reckless, partly because they only want to invest on what's profitable to the royal family. Even her father saw it as useless, telling her that people with no value are not needed. Reminiscing that enraged feeling that had once eventually resulted in her greed for power for her to prove them wrong, Dorothea snaps out of it and tries to remember that she's now trying to let go of that maliciousness. Frustrated with how hopeless she is, she throws the papers. But to her surprise, Ray is in the room and subsequently picks them up. He reads the paper and is amazed by his sister's plan. Thinking with just a little information gathering, it is plausible. Dorothea cuts his excitement, telling him that it can't be done. And like a true brother, he sees right through her grim expression on the reason behind it. He tells her that he can offer his help getting their father's consent, which she failed to get in her past life. Dorothea doesn't want to admit that she needed help, but the power of her father's favored child can't be ignored. Most importantly, this is for Clara and Anton. She hesitantly asks if he can do it, which Ray excitedly says yes, but on one condition: a hug and a thank you from her. Dorothea is too stunned to speak to such an absurd request. She refuses it, which makes Ray devastated since he thinks it's a profitable trade for her. Curious to what Ray could get from that, Ray explains she's never done that before, that the moment she was born, she seemingly hated being hugged by him. That's when Dorothea remembered that it was the day she was reincarnated. Ray tells her he hated those times, but understands because she was still a baby, but she didn't hug him during his initiation ceremony either. She tries to deny remembering such events in front of his devastated face. She asks what's so meaningful about giving him a hug. Surprised that there's still a need to ask, Ray immediately tells her that it's Dorothea's will to allow him to break down the barrier to take a step further towards her, to have a relationship where they can understand and accept each other a little more, which is for him the most important above all else. He managed to make Dorothea say yes, but before he can get his reward, he needs to go get the Emperor's consent. Ray realizes that Dorothea has opened up her heart to him a bit more than before. Normally, she wouldn't even consider accepting such a ridiculous proposal. While walking, he stops at their mother's portrait displayed into the hallways of the palace. With his mother's absence, along came his younger sister, who he considers more special and more lovely than anyone else. He continues to stare at his mother's portrait as he promises to take care of Dorothea, not wanting to lose another family member, not like how he lost his mother. Ray gives the Emperor the plans for the Disabled Assistance Center, and the monarch looks at him with a bewildered expression on his face. When he tries to explain the significance of this to his father, all the king does is express disapproval. And similar to Dorothea's recollections of the past, the Emperor views this as nothing more than an unnecessary luxury. He advises Ray to always weigh profit and loss in relation to the Empire's prosperity, and not be swayed by such trivial matters. Hearing from his father about focusing on more valuable tasks makes him ask what valuable tasks are really there within the imperial house. And if it's not supporting those who are immediately struggling, then who or what else should they strive to help? He confidently tells his father that the prosperity of the people is the prosperity of the empire. He ends by questioning what good is the imperial house without the people. But the moment Karnan knows Dorothea is at the root of the plans, he asks Ray if he's being manipulated. In an instant, Ray refutes these claims, saying that Karnan stopped talking before even asking Dorothea about her intentions. Without uttering a word, Karnan gave the impression of asking why the arrogant monarch should inquire about a young girl's intentions. His stares are enough to send shivers down anybody's spine. Raymond underestimates the weight of the millionaire name. The sun is their dominion. By providing the people with their warmth, they merely cause them to become inactive. And so they should always choose when and who to shine that warmth upon carefully. And just like that, Ray becomes irritated with His Majesty's effortless speech despite his lack of knowledge. He informs him that what Dorothea really wants to offer is a home free from prejudice and where no one is treated unfairly. He tells him that nothing is worse than turning a blind eye and doing nothing despite having the power to do so. The weight of their power can give them the strength to help someone, which is why Dorothea prepared the proposal. Karnan reminds Ray about the crisis the imperial house is in, Dorothea being unable to wield the spirit of light and what this means for a millionaire. He tells him that Dorothea's incompetence would be wishing to further diminish the authority of the fallen imperial house. The spirit of light, the genesis of the world, holds unmatched power and authority, symbolizing legitimacy to rule the empire. The House of Fried maintains its position solely through wielding this spirit. Karnan asserts that only those who wield the spirit can claim the throne. The spirit's power is the sole justification for a millionaire to hold the throne. For the House of Fried, authority is contingent upon the stature of the spirit, creating a symbiotic political relationship. Karnan points out how Dorothea disgraces the millionaire name while they seek support elsewhere, causing allies to abandon them. He warns against sacrificing smaller gains to preserve larger ones. But Ray insists on considering the people of Uvera's welfare, questioning if the Empire values even their hearts for profit. Karnan turns his back and tells him that if he has good reason to, then it must be that way. And for the king, his people are never enough of a reason. Once Karnan departs, Ray comes to the realization that suggesting the throne cannot be sustained without the spirit implies incompetence. Ray nervously delivers the news to Dorothea, urging her to proceed in his name. He offers to shoulder the responsibility, confident the emperor won't go as far as banishing him as the crown prince. Realizing he may have rubbed her the wrong way given the emperor's treatment of her, he attempts to apologize, but Dorothea grabs him by the collar. She grabs him with all her might and questions why he would go to such lengths for someone at a disadvantage. Despite their father's opinion, he sees Dorothea as the most amazing person he knows as he gently holds her hand. Overwhelmed, Dorothea struggles to respond, feeling conflicted by Ray's kindness. If only Ray knew that the very hand he's grabbing destroyed everything. She would rather want him to express anger, inquire about her sins, resent and punish her, as his kindness pushes her to confront her past sins. Deeply resentful and jealous, she even contemplates killing him or even confessing it to him. Dorothea finally says her true intention to Ray, and that he should cast her aside as well, like what Karnan did, like the nobles and the people who gossip about her. But even before she finishes speaking her mind, Ray instead finds this quite touching. It's the first time she said something to him. And to know that she didn't just hate him outright, but only because she felt sorry, is a glad thing to know. He tells her that to think that she's a bad person just because she was jealous just proves how kind of a person Dorothea is. However, Dorothea struggles to comprehend his perspective. Ray explains that truly bad people lack guilt and refuse to repent, contrasting her genuine remorse. He assures her he's doing well and embraces her, though she yearns for forgiveness, even if it means remaining ignorant of her past sins. As they embrace, Ray notices Dorothea's tears and attempts to console her by telling her that he's jealous and despises her too. Boy, what a way to console someone, Ray! However, in Dorothea's mind, she prays he doesn't forgive her for this. Meanwhile, in the palace, Theon observes that Ray appears to be in a great mood. He still can't get over how adorable Dorothea is a while ago, surely still elated from their shared moment. Neleus interrupts their conversation with disdainful remarks about their plans for a support center, prompting Ray to respond with wit and composure. Ray instead extends his gratitude to him for considering the affairs of another empire as his own, but he thinks it's none of the Prince of Harks' business. Talk that talk, Ray. Spit that to his arrogant face. But Neleus tells him that Uvera won't last much longer, since in the Imperial House, the lineage of the spirits is already fading, and the family is bound to be doomed starting with Dorothea. And so, Theon stops Neleus from going too far. Despite Neleus's provocations, Ray maintains his composure and even manages to turn the tables on him by reminding him that Dorothea won against him. Perhaps Hark might collapse before Ivera. Meanwhile, Dorothea and Ray start to make plans on how they can change the perception of people with disabilities, which has become the root of discrimination in their empire. 1 year later, the support center was successfully established with positive responses from the community. Dorothea reflects on their journey and Ray's support, realizing the importance of collaboration and understanding. Just when she's about to give him an actual compliment, Ray starts to act all childish again, asking for a hug. Ray's face is very gloomy as Dorothea refuses his request for a hug. Dorothea instead extends her hand in gratitude for their progress. Dorothea extends her hand for a handshake, but Ray surprises her by pulling her into a hug. Blushing, Dorothea tries to break free, embarrassed by the onlookers, but Ray proudly embraces her, disregarding any judgment that might come from the onlookers. As they embrace, Dorothea recalls a past memory of Ray's kindness, realizing it may have prevented her from harming him. She admires his unwavering belief, making her acknowledge even her own faults, and making her wonder if that's the reason why he didn't kill her in her past life. Fittingly, Dorothea wonders if she was the stupid one instead of Ray. Meanwhile, Ethan, the talented violinist of the Bronte family, was performing for a crowd. Based on the compliments of the people, Ethan's father suggests he retake the episteme entrance exam. But Ethan declines, cherishing the connections he's made and choosing to support his family. Unbeknownst to his father, Ethan's true reason for not pursuing episteme is his admiration for the princess, despite rumors of her incompetence. He desires to become someone worthy of her company. On the other hand, in Overa, Ray excitedly shares his top 50 ranking with Dorothea, only to be teased about Theon's superior score. As Theon invites Dorothea to visit his hometown, memories of their past life flood her mind. Still, she resolves to go, despite her lingering feelings for him. It's a foggy morning as the sounds of horses' footsteps echo the surrounding. While the millionaire siblings are on their way to Phrygia, Raymond jokes about how Phrygia signed a contract with the dark spirits that explains the foggy weather. As soon as they arrive in front of a huge castle, which seemingly looks like something straight out of Athens, Dorothy's eyes grow wide as she gazes upon the castle's beauty. She barely remembers it being a beautiful place because it's a very different world from the one she saw in her past life. This day is her last day with Theon. Nervousness lingers in, but she convinces herself to act normally. Her cheeks turn red when Theon offers his hand in front of her as he welcomes her to Phrygia. What a romantic scene! For sure, Dorothy can't handle the butterflies in her tummy. Inside the castle, Theon's mother, the Grand Duchess Fried, welcomes the millionaire siblings with a beaming smile on her face, which melts their hearts. Dorothy then decides to have a rest when, out of the blue, Theon grabs her hand and takes her by the lake to go fish hunting. There, Dorothy is just peacefully sitting while watching the two men having fun. Moments later, Ray shows his excitement holding the big fish he just caught. Not long after, Julia arrives bringing lunch for them. Dorothy's smile suddenly fades when she sees Julia laughing together with Theon in front of her. Of course, whenever Theon is around, Julia is never far behind. Looks like someone's feeling a tad jealous, huh? Meanwhile, Raymond then walks holding a bucket of fish. He happily shows off his fishing skills by the amount of fish he caught. He jokes around about becoming a hunter instead of an emperor, which gains a violent reaction from his sister Dorothy. If Raymond is being lucky in catching fish, Theon is completely opposite. As per Julia, it might be because of the spirit of darkness. She even recalls the time when he broke a glass when he was little. Upon hearing these, bitterness grows inside Dorothy, and Julia's presence makes her feel small because, after all, Julia knows a lot about Theon. She refuses the thoughts in her mind since all she wants is Theon's happiness. His smile is enough for her already. After a while, Theon invites her to go fishing with him. She can't believe that Theon offered his hand twice already. How can she even resist? She takes a moment of silence as she contemplates accepting the invite. However, the thought of it being the last time pushes her to be a little greedy, so she reaches his hand as a response. And so Dorothy and Theon begin fishing. Unfortunately, he first catches Boots with a missing pair. Fishing is clearly not his specialty, but because he loves the lake, he finds it very fun every time he's hunting a fish. Then there is silence. Both of them just stare at the beautiful lake. Theon breaks the silence, and the next thing he says makes the princess speechless. The awkward silence is interrupted when Dorothy feels like she catches a fish. What her hook catches seems so huge and strong that both of them have to lift it together. On the count of 3, they both fall to the ground, with Dorothy ending up being on top of him while they catch their breaths. As she slowly opens her eyes, she's taken aback to find his lips pressed against hers. They both freeze, wide-eyed and speechless, realizing it was an accidental kiss. Both of them remain speechless, sweat dripping, eyes locked in each other with surprise and shock. Moments later, the awkwardness is interrupted when Stefan suddenly arrives. Turns out Dorothy caught the biggest fish. Theon praises the princess and tells her about the belief that the person who caught the biggest fish will become the star of the day. This makes her heart melt and at the same time embarrassed. Why does she look even more beautiful when blushing like that? Makes me want to sail this ship to the sea. Still confused, Dorothy cannot stop thinking about the kiss, which was actually her first kiss, and why Theon doesn't mention anything about it as if nothing happened. She cannot handle the feeling and her heart seems to explode, yet Theon looks unbothered by it. Meanwhile, Dorothy can't shake off her confusion. She can't understand why Theon seems perfectly fine despite what she thinks was just a small accident. She can't help but wonder if he hasn't felt anything at all. Moments later, she decides to rest because her thoughts are drowning her. In the middle of contemplating her feelings, a man blocks her sight and she starts blushing as she realizes their faces are too close once again. With curiosity, Theon asks her as to why she accepted his invitation, when in fact, he already expects her to decline since all she does is put an invisible wall between them. Seems like she's hiding her true feelings. After he opens up about his feelings, Dorothy admits she's careful because she's afraid he might hate her, remembering how much he disliked her in the past. Despite her worries, she smiles softly and tells him all she wants is for him to be happy. Her thoughts echo in her mind. All the reasons why she chooses to come back begin flashing back. As Theon utters the word happiness, Dorothy's mind embarks on a journey of contemplation, delving into the depths of possibility of happiness. With a fleeting touch of his hand, memories come flooding back, whisking her away to the chaotic days of their shared history, where his eyes bore nothing but pure hatred towards her. She then begins to burst into tears. Theon notices this painful scene, so he reaches his hand to her cheeks to wipe off her tears. This gesture might be comforting to some, but to Dorothy, this seems hard. Him being nice is making it hard for her to let go. He starts caressing her cheeks, then she hands him the handkerchief and the bottle of ointment he gave to her. She decides to return them instead of throwing them away. How sweet of him to remember everything. To think that it's rare for a guy to remember such small details. However, Theon declines to accept them since these are the things he gave, so there's no need to return them. But as Dorothy remembers what happens with her day and how Theon treats her, she flashes an assuring smile that she's now ready to let go. Left with no choice, Theon accepts the things. Meanwhile, in Dorothy's mind, she already thanks him for allowing her to love endlessly, caring for her despite the harm she caused. Later that evening, Dorothy stares beneath the starry sky, lost in thought as the cool breeze brushes against her skin, while her hair sways by the wind. Suddenly, a bright light catches her eyes, reminding her of Ethan and prompting a fleeting worry about him. As their vacation draws to a close, they find themselves wandering through the grand halls of the palace, soaking in the final moments of their time away. Raymond's voice fills the air with playful complaints, expressing his desire to extend their stay. Despite the impending turn to reality, they linger, savoring each step and relishing the sights around them. Moments later, a young woman approaches them and shows the accessories made of shells found only in the Viridian Sea. The two are mesmerized by the seashells. Those are actually handmade work by the young woman to be given for the loved ones. Dorothy ends up buying them, then gives one to Stefan. The gesture makes his heart melt and flashes a soft smile. Then both of them head on their way back to the palace. It's Ray's graduation day from Esteem. Ray looks handsome as usual, wearing his formal graduation attire. Not long after, Dorothy arrives holding a bouquet of flowers as a gift for Ray. The two are having a casual talk, and Ray, being silly as usual, continues to joke around. Later on, a familiar face catches Dorothy's attention. A man in his tuxedo captures her gaze, and she notices the change in his aura. Soon after, their eyes meet, and Theon shows a sweet smile. Dorothy feels unsure because of what happened in Phrygia, but she notices how Theon treats her with kindness. This brings back memories, and she can't help but smile genuinely at him. It's a quiet way of saying she feels better with him around. After seeing all the hype, Raymond thinks that everyone is talking about the debutante ceremony. The debutante ball held in opera is one of the largest events where all the nobles gather, which is generally held in the spring after the episteme graduation ceremony. This is the only ceremony for young nobles to gather, so everyone is struggling to find a partner. Who would be Dorothy's partner, though? Before the ceremony, as Raymond asks Dorothy about her partner for the debutante ball, her eyes glance upon Theon from a distance having a conversation with Julia. There's a silence as soon as she realizes that she cannot find a partner, so it won't be a fun event for her. As Dorothy steps into the event, the air crackles with whispered conversations that seem to follow her every move. Eyes dart her way, accompanied by hushed murmurs that echo like a chorus of disapproval. The atmosphere buzzes with tension, every word uttered carrying a weight of judgment. It must be hard for her. Seriously, what is Theon doing? She can hear all of them, and she cannot take it any longer. Suddenly, a man appears in front, protecting her dignity. Theon comes out of nowhere, serving like Dorothy's knight in shining armor. That's it! That's what we've been waiting for! Theon volunteers himself to be her partner, and at that moment, she feels the kindness from him. However, she declines and mentions that it's okay for her to have no partner. In a swift turn of events, Prince Nereus strides over, asserting himself as Dorothy's partner with an air of superiority. Sarcastic remarks drip from his lips as he challenges Dorothy's ability to find a partner more suitable than himself. However, before the tension can settle, a hush falls over the room as Ethan makes a sudden entrance, catching everyone off guard. Gasps fill the air as he boldly steps forward, his presence commanding attention. Then, in a move that stuns everyone, Ethan closes the distance between them and plants a tender kiss on Dorothy's forehead. A gesture both unexpected and profound, leaving the three men surprised. Ethan's sudden appearance and the unexpected gesture of affection, a tender kiss upon Dorothy's forehead, leaves everyone surprised. Theon, in particular, is rendered speechless by the surprising turn of events, his usually composed demeanor faltering in the face of this unforeseen twist. It becomes evident that Ethan's arrival is anything but unpredictable. There's an air of familiarity between him and Dorothy, a connection that transcends time and space. It's as though their meeting was destined, a reunion it may appear. He speaks of promises made, stirring memories long buried. Dorothy finds herself caught off guard as she grapples with the implications of Ethan's unexpected return and the echoes of the past that threaten to resurface. Raymond interrupts with a bewildered expression, showing a lack of familiarity with Ethan. Ethan steps forward, a picture of confidence and poise, and begins to introduce himself as the second son of the Bronte family. Wow, that's quite a bold move! His introduction sends shockwaves rippling through the crowd. Murmurs erupt like a sudden gust of wind, swirling around the room, and curiosity and intrigue appears in the air as guests show their admiration to the handsome man. Not long after, Raymond finally recognizes Ethan as Dorothy's first partner. The air crackles with tension as Prince Nereus, his eyes ablaze with fury, strides forward to confront Ethan. In response, Ethan throws words of insults that certainly steps Nereus' manly ego. Because of the sudden commotion that creates a rage between the two, whispers spread like wildfire among the guests as they exchange hurried murmurs and speculative glances. Continuously, Prince Nereus keeps pointing his finger at Ethan, who seems to be unbothered by his insults and finds his words childish and not funny. Moreover, Ethan reveals that his brother will graduate in the same year after failing several times. This reason once again creates an idea of insult from Prince Nereus towards him. In a calm tone, Ethan proudly tells him that what he learned outside the academy is far beyond helpful, and that is to treat everyone, regardless of their background, in a respectful manner, and not attack them when he can't think of anything to say, as if he's talking about what Prince Nereus did a while ago. As the tension between Prince Nereus and Ethan escalates, with a swift and violent gesture, he strikes out at Ethan, a hand pressed to his cheek where a bruise already begins to blossom like a dark flower. Despite the pain etched across his features, Ethan remains calm. Ray stands firmly in between, trying to stop the escalating fire within Prince Nereus, with eyes showing authority, and threatens the prince, which leaves him with no choice but to walk away in anger. Meanwhile, Dorothy's face flashes worry, then decides to bring Ethan somewhere alone to talk. However, neither of them says anything, and the silence echoes through the room. She decides to break the deafening silence by asking if he's okay. With eyes full of hope, Ethan asks if she misses him. In fact, she always thinks of him, whether she's having a sad or happy moment. The conversation starts to deepen as they begin talking about their feelings in the past. Ethan is still holding on to their promise, despite Dorothy having thoughts about him finding someone better than her. With a sense of unwavering assurance, Ethan's voice cuts through the tension like a beacon of clarity in the depths of uncertainty. His words carry the weight of truth as he reveals how every beat of his heart echoes the name of Dorothy. All Ethan desires is Dorothy. Meanwhile, she let her own imagination run wild when she heard his words. Yet even amidst Ethan's sweet gestures and kind words, Dorothy can't shake a niggling doubt. She wonders if his affection is genuine or just a facade. She struggles with feeling unworthy, thinking her lineage is insignificant, that it doesn't measure up to his expectations. In her eyes, she's just an ordinary person in a sea of exceptional individuals. In her mind, what's the point of a princess lineage if she's treated like rubbish? In the face of adversity, Dorothy is forced to confront the harsh truth that her royal lineage does not guarantee her happiness or fulfillment. In a moment of vulnerability, Ethan reaches out to grasp Dorothy's hand, his touch a tangible reassurance amidst her doubts. With unwavering conviction, he looks into her eyes and speaks words of affirmation. Yet, as Ethan's kindness threatens to breach the fortress of her defenses, Dorothy remains steady. She knows all too well the dangers of falling for sweet words. It appears that he has overestimated her and he might be disappointed later. In her previous life, she had high hopes for what she would become in life. She believes that Ethan doesn't know anything at all. Little did he know that she was miserable, a disappointment, and a frustration. The more she refuses the idea, he keeps pushing for more. She firmly believes it as greed, for Ethan argues that what she perceives as greed can also be seen as something far more noble and pure: wishes, desires, and hope. He challenges her to reconsider her perspective, to open her heart to the possibility. Ethan really doesn't know the words "give up." Her confusion starts to escalate as to why he's very interested in her, but even Ethan doesn't know the answer. He's aware of her situation, but soon she will discover her intellect. The next day, Dorothy remains bothered and wonders about Ethan's words. She is seen sitting in front of her father, who shows an aura of authority, who is busy doing something. Do royalties enjoy people waiting for them? After a while, the Majesty commands the servant to bring something, which turns out to be wine with Dorothy's name printed on it. Confused, she asks her father as to why she sees her name on it. In response, the Majesty recalls the time when young Dorothy requested a wine with her name on it. Fascinated by her father's response, she gasps, realizing how her father kept his words. He reveals that there are hundreds of thousands of bottles with her name. Still, she remains speechless, and all the voices are only stuck in her head. It is too much for her, but her father considers it as her debut gift. She responds in silence, which makes him think she doesn't like the gift. He then proceeds to head out. Dorothy slowly brings the glass to her lips and takes a tentative sip, her taste buds tingling with the exquisite flavor of the wine. It appears that Dorothy donated all 100,000 bottles of wine to hospitals, volunteers, and knights. She decides to give it to everyone because 100,000 bottles of wine is so hard to consume alone. Can I also get one, Princess Dorothy? It's the day of her debut, and Dorothy is preparing with the help of her personal assistant, Clara. The two ladies are having a good time talking about Stefan and Clara's status. Later that day, Dorothy starts being nervous as she gracefully walks through the crowd. She stands out like a beacon of light in the darkness, her beauty and poise capturing the attention of all who behold her. A hand extends towards her with a gesture of respect. With a mixture of surprise and anticipation, she follows the line of the arm upward. Ethan, in his usual handsome appearance, stands in front. Although she's nervous, she reaches out to his hand as well. However, a nagging sense of unease creeps into her mind like a persistent whisper in the shadows. Memories of past chaos on this very day flood her thoughts, and she knows that anything can happen on such an auspicious occasion. She recalls how the lights in the ballroom suddenly went out when she stood in front of everybody. How panic from the guests echoed the ballroom, and there was only complete darkness. Her debutante was a complete disaster. That time, she felt like the world was rejecting her, so she cannot help but be drowned with the doubts that this time will be all right. Lost in her own thoughts, Dorothy is unaware of Ethan's words until his warm breath tickles her ear, sending a shiver down her spine. Startled, she turns to find him standing beside her, a knowing smile playing at the corners of his lips. Meanwhile, Theon is watching them from afar in silence. Who knows what he must be thinking? Suddenly, Julia approaches him with a concerned face. I can really smell the scent of jealousy from Theon. As the princess gracefully navigates the crowded ballroom, the air crackles with the energy of whispered conversations and hushed murmurs full of insults and judgment. Not long after, the light spirit appears during the opening. It's Ethan's first time seeing, and doesn't even amaze him because he certainly expects for more. It's almost the end of the event, and Dorothy starts to head her way out, but she still has doubts about her capabilities. She starts feeling small, as to the fact that she cannot control spirits unlike her father. Good thing Ethan is to the rescue, and both of them are at the balcony when a sudden appearance of Theon and Julia surprises her. On a celestial, moonlit evening, Princess Dorothy enters the hall, her presence radiant and almost otherworldly. Every movement carries quiet elegance, drawing the room's attention without effort. As she glides through the gathering, she encounters Lord Fred Theon and his partner, Julia. The pair appear composed and perfectly cordial, yet something about them feels subtly off. Still, she greets them with effortless grace. Then a voice calls from behind. Dorothy turns, and there stands Ethan Bronte, striking and magnetic, his gaze fixed warmly upon her. The moment lingers before the two excuse themselves with poise. As they leave, Lord Theon's eyes follow their intertwined hands, watching far longer than politeness allows. Soon, the debut ball comes alive. Ethan moves across the floor with dazzling skill, guiding partner after partner with effortless charm. The crowd watches, captivated by his precision and grace. At the edge of the hall, Prince Nereus stands uneasy, his confidence faltering. When Dorothy's turn arrives, a darker idea begins to take shape in his mind. Meanwhile, Ethan and Dorothy drift across the floor as if untouched by the crowd, moving in perfect harmony, their attention fixed solely on one another. But Nereus refuses to accept the moment. With a hidden scheme, the stage floor warps beneath them. Ethan reacts instantly, guiding Dorothy safely aside. Then, the lights vanish. In the sudden darkness, a breathtaking vision unfolds. A radiant spirit of light emerges, illuminating Ethan and Dorothy at the center of the hall. In that luminous moment, Ethan reveals the truth. Princess Dorothy is the rightful heiress of opera, the true bearer of the throne. And in that glowing revelation, the two stand like figures from legend, unforgettable and magnificent. Contrary to Ethan's expectations, Princess Dorothy does not welcome the spectacle. For a fleeting moment, her heart races because of him. But the illusion quickly shatters when she realizes the spirit of light does not emerge from her at all. The revelation leaves her exposed, stripped of dignity and hope. Standing before Ethan now, she feels painfully vulnerable as he tries to calm her. In her mind, the entire display feels cruel. Why would he go to such lengths? To reveal her weakness? To remind her how powerless she truly is? Yet Ethan does not respond with arrogance. Instead, he speaks with quiet sincerity as he places the stone of the light spirit into Dorothy's hands. The truth finally unfolds. The stone, he explains, is a sacred relic he could never return to her before. As a child, he lacked the strength to do so. Back then, he was powerless, an easy target for Jonathan's relentless bullying. Everything changes during a hunting trip that resulted in Jonathan's death. With his death, Ethan becomes the sole heir of the Bronte family. Power suddenly rests in his hands, and for a time he revels in it, finding amusement in watching proud nobles humiliate themselves. Until one person sees through him. Princess Dorothea Millionaire. From the moment she uncovers his secret pastime, something shifts. What begins in confrontation quietly transforms into something far more dangerous. An unrelenting love at first sight. Of all the ways to meet someone, this has to be the most unique, and I'm loving every second of it. Dorothea Millionaire, the one name that truly belongs on the throne. She is beauty, courage, and strength woven into one formidable woman. Perhaps that is why fate draws Ethan to her, the man willing to offer every part of himself so she can stand whole and unbroken. Together, they become unstoppable, through hardship and in defiance of it. A memory rises from the past. Ethan summons Lord Theon, and in the tense silence of the chamber, a blade rests cold against the Duke's throat. Ethan makes his purpose clear. His life exists to protect the princess, and he refuses to ignore the thorns threatening her path. He knows the truth behind Theon's proposal. It is not love, it is ambition. To Ethan, that is unforgivable. The throne belongs to Princess Dorothy and to no one else. Even without the power of a soul, she stands stronger than anyone, brilliant, resilient, and destined to lead. Men like Theon are nothing more than thorns in her life, and thorns must be cut away. Yet fate spares the Duke that day. Left alone in a room, swallowed by darkness, Theon collapses into quiet despair. Deep down, he knows the painful truth. Dorothy loved him completely, but his own ambition drives him to ruin. Time passes. Then the princess mutiny erupts, shaking the empire. Doubts spread among the people, questioning Dorothy's authority to rule. But amid the rising unrest, Ethan stands beside her. With quiet resolve, he silences the noise and steadies the woman who now bears the weight of an empire. He vows to give her the world, no matter the cost. And it all begins with one goal: finding the Stone of the Light Spirit. If this isn't love, then I don't honestly know what is. That kind of intensity says everything. Just as Princess Dorothy has Ethan by her side, Lord Theon has Julia. Both are bound by the same devotion, each willing to empty themselves just to keep the one they love alive. Driven by that love, Julia sets out to find the Stone of Light. But fate refuses to follow her plan. Because just like her, Ethan is also capable of doing anything, absolutely anything for the princess. The moment arrives when Julia prepares to pass the stone to the person meant to deliver it to Lord Theon. Then suddenly Ethan appears. With unwavering resolve, he takes the stone from her, claiming it for Dorothy. Meanwhile, inside the palace, Princess Dorothy suffers quietly under the weight of Lord Theon's actions. The pain deepens when he ultimately cuts ties with her. Seeing the princess in tears ignites Ethan's fury. He storms into Theon's chamber, ready to confront him. But the man before him is no longer the same. Theon lifts his gaze with hollow, lifeless eyes, shattered by the truth that Julia has been killed by the very man standing before him. What a cruel twist of fate for everyone! Theon flees, yet his escape is brief. Soon after, he is discovered lifeless in Princess Dorothy's chamber. His death ruled a suicide. The tragedy plunges the princess into overwhelming grief, leaving behind a darkness no one expected. Didn't expect it to get this dark. This is storytelling at its finest. That incident shatters Princess Dorothy. For Ethan, it becomes the ultimate revenge Lord Theon could ever wield against him. The Empire trembles. Trust in the throne crumbles. People begin calling for Dorothy's removal. At any moment, enemies could invade, and the Empire would be defenseless. In desperation, the elders turn to Ethan, the Prime Minister, urging him to take the throne. Yet he refuses, recognizing Dorothy as the only rightful leader. Night after night, Ethan watches Dorothy endure unbearable pain, each moment slowly eroding a part of his own soul as he sees her fading from him. How devastating must it be for Ethan, who would move mountains for Dorothy, only to watch her grieve for her own world, Theon? The people's anger grows louder, and the day arrives to execute Empress Dorothy. The weight of it is crushing. Despite Ethan's desperate efforts, Dorothy has already embraced her fate, her heart still tethered to Theon. When Dorothy passes, Ethan is left hollow, swallowed by regret and hopelessness. He understands too well what she must have felt when Theon died. Losing someone you love to the other side, wishing you could follow them. And then, amid the despair, a saving grace appears. The Stone of Light. Ethan realizes in that instant that his last ray of hope lies in the Stone of Light, until the King of Light Spirits, Lux, suddenly appears before him. Blinded by the radiant figure, Ethan can only stare upward in stunned silence. Then Lux presents an offer, a partnership. The timing feels cruel. Why now when the one person Ethan loves is already gone? Bitterness rises within him. Ethan tries to laugh it off, blaming the King of Light for arriving far too late. But Lux continues, revealing the terms of a mutual agreement, one where Ethan can gain something in return. And there is only one thing Ethan truly wants: to see Princess Dorothy again. To make that possible, Lux must defy time itself. The cost is uncertain, yet Ethan seizes the chance without hesitation, willing to gamble everything just to bring her back. The pact is sealed. Ethan awakens once more, not as the man he was, but as a boy, orphaned, a beggar. He swears to live without greed, content with the quiet knowledge that somewhere in this life, Princess Dorothy is alive. But fate refuses to stay silent. One day, their paths cross again, just as he remembers. In the present, the moment catches up with them. Princess Dorothy stands frozen before Ethan as the revelations unfold and the memories of their past come rushing back. She finally understands what has always been true. Ethan's devotion has never wavered. And in that same moment, Ethan allows himself one final act of selfish hope. He kneels and asks Dorothy to stand beside him as his empress. The sight stirs something deep within her. Memories of childhood bloom in her mind. The grand celebrations in the palace, the people who poured their hearts into her happiness, and the quiet kindness of Lord Stefan. Her family has always been her refuge. And at last, she realizes she is not alone. Even when the world threatens to collapse beneath her, there is still a place where she belongs. A home she can always return to. Power. This is what it takes to rule an empire, and Princess Dorothy stands at the center of it, the Stone of Light resting in her hand. Yet the weight of such power unsettles her, and she struggles to steady herself beneath the burden it carries. She understands what power demands. Great strength brings even greater responsibility, and deep down, she fears she may falter, just as she once did before. But Ethan believes in her without hesitation. To him, Dorothy is not just capable, she's the rightful heir to the throne, the one destined to become empress. Their quiet moment ends abruptly when a servant arrives with urgent news. The Emperor has summoned her. Standing before the ruler of the empire, Princess Dorothy senses something different in the air. The Emperor's treatment feels unusually attentive, almost deliberate. The memory of the debutante banquet lingers in her mind. Her suspicions prove true. The Emperor commands her to summon the spirit again, just as she did during that grand event. But Dorothy cannot do it. More importantly, she refuses to. In the end, the Emperor assigns Rei to train with her and help her master the power of the Stone of Light. Later that night, beneath the quiet glow of the moonlit sky, Dorothy's mind races with doubts, possibilities, and unanswered questions. She resolves to keep the truth hidden from Rei, at least for now. Yet fate intervenes. Rei suddenly appears before her, wearing the same bright, easy smile he always carries. Dorothy studies his face, and a quiet realization settles in her heart. The man standing before her has always been sincere. In the chill of the night, Rei's warmth offers comfort to the troubled princess. But the moment does not last. Another figure steps into the scene. Rei turns and finds himself face to face with Ethan, and the unspoken tension between the two men finally begins to surface. This is just getting more and more interesting. Beneath the soft glow of the moon, Princess Dorothy gently places the Stone of Light into Ethan's hand. The power it carries feels unbearable to her. The past looms too close, its shadows creeping into the present. Dorothy fears that if she reaches for the throne again, the same tragedy may repeat itself. Ethan cannot stand hearing her diminish herself. He reminds her of the strength she carries and insists this moment could be her chance to rise above the humiliation and pain she once endured. But Dorothy has already decided. Seeing her resolve, Ethan lowers his shoulders in quiet defeat. He respects her choice, even as it leaves him feeling powerless. Still, a strange clarity settles in his heart. If surrendering the throne is Dorothy's way of seeking atonement, then burying his feelings for her will be his own. Elsewhere, the palace banquet unfolds in dazzling splendor. Rei approaches Theon and Julia as their conversation drifts towards the question of succession. Rei speaks with calm confidence, not because he believes the throne is guaranteed, but because his ambitions run deeper than power alone. Music fills the grand hall until Ethan and Princess Dorothy arrive together. The room grows tense. Then Prince Nereus boldly inserts himself into the moment, stirring unease among the nobles. When the time comes for the ceremonial toast, Dorothy rises. Her gaze sweeps across the glittering crowd, remembering every slight and every moment they turned away. With deliberate calm, she lifts her glass and invites them all to drink for every time they once ignored her. Queen behavior! To be loved as fiercely as Ethan loves Princess Dorothy is the kind of devotion many dream about. Yet few understand the quiet sacrifice hidden behind a love so absolute. Dorothy has always sensed the depth of Ethan's feelings. What she once mentions in passing becomes something he remembers with startling precision. Every small wish, every fleeting remark, Ethan carries them all, and somehow he finds a way to fulfill them. As their carriage moves through the night, Dorothy studies the man beside her. He is someone who would gladly give up the world for her. A thought lingers in her mind. Perhaps things might have unfolded differently if Ethan had kept the truth hidden until the very end. But Ethan never acts for recognition. Every effort he makes grows from a single wish, to see the princess live without pain. In the quiet of that moment, he gently urges her toward the future she once desired, a life beside Lord Theon. If that path brings her happiness, he's willing to step aside, even if it means letting her go. Hearts are breaking right now. The silence between them grows heavy as they arrive at the palace gates. Lights glow warmly from within, and Dorothy catches sight of the people waiting for her, her family, her home. For the first time that night, the world no longer feels harsh or uncertain. All she wants is to return to their embrace. Watching from a quiet distance, Ethan realizes something with painful clarity. This may be the last moment he will ever stand so close to the woman he loves. And still, he chooses to let her walk away. Princess Dorothy steps into a scene filled with warmth. Her family waits for her with bright smiles, surrounding her with proud congratulations as if she had just claimed the world itself. This is the feeling she treasures most. Not power, not the throne. Dorothy would rather stand beside the people who truly care for her than be surrounded by nobles who see her only as a political advantage. Later that night, exhaustion finally catches up to her. She retreats to her room and collapses onto the bed, the weight of the day settling over her. Yet even in that quiet moment, her thoughts drift toward Ethan. The longing is impossible to ignore. Elsewhere, Ethan feels the same restless ache and wonders if this is where their story ends. Suddenly, Jonathan storms into his room with his usual arrogance. But this time, Ethan refuses to back down and firmly stands his ground. When the room falls silent again, a soft radiance appears. The spirit of light fills the space, and Ethan senses Dorothy calling out to him. "My faves, just get back together, please!" Morning breaks over the palace as the entire Bronte family stands before the Emperor in solemn respect. The family intends to present Jonathan and secure his future, yet the plan quickly unravels. The Emperor's gaze settles on the youngest son instead. Ethan carries himself with quiet confidence, meeting the Emperor without hesitation, his composure marked by practiced elegance. Beside him, Jonathan burns with frustration as attention shifts away from him. The audience soon ends and the family prepares to depart. Then, as if fate intervenes, Princess Dorothy suddenly appears. The Bronte elders urge Ethan forward. Strangely, the fearless guy who faced an emperor now struggles to speak to her alone. Ethan's thoughts race as he wonders what the princess wants from him. They walk toward a private chamber, passing murmuring courtiers. Soft waves of admiration from nearby ladies follow Ethan, yet none of it reaches him. His attention remains fixed on Dorothy walking ahead, never once glancing back. The distance between them quietly weighs on him. They arrive at her chamber, and Ethan stands in respectful silence, absorbing every gesture and movement she makes. Then Dorothy lowers the walls she has carried for so long and reveals the truth within her heart. She once believed her second life was punishment for the tyranny of her past, a burden carried with painful memories. But clarity dawns. Ethan is the one who fights to give her another chance. Because of him, she uncovers Ray's intentions, saves Theon, and finds strength in Lord Stefan, Clara, Joy, and Poe. Overwhelmed, Ethan breaks down as Dorothy gently pulls him into an embrace. "I swear, something just got in my eyes. Hold on. Please, please, they deserve all the happiness in the world." After their heartfelt moment, Ethan grows uncharacteristically shy around the princess. The fierce young man who faces emperors without fear now struggles to meet her gaze. Dorothy notices the change and finds it unexpectedly endearing. Ethan has always carried a dangerous charm, the very quality that makes him so captivating. Yet seeing him break down for her reveals something deeper, an emotion raw, powerful, and unmistakably sincere. Unable to ignore the feeling stirring inside her, Dorothy gently presses him about what he feels for her. Ethan responds with unguarded devotion, his emotions laid bare. The honesty in his confession leaves Dorothy stunned, her thoughts dissolving into the rapid pounding of her heart. For the first time, she fully understands the depth of Ethan's feelings, and the realization stirs something new within her. Finally, love begins to blossom, and we're all here to witness them heal together. At last, gathering his courage, Ethan presents the spirit stone necklace he has carefully prepared for the princess. The piece is exquisite, its design reflecting Dorothy's favorite pattern. As Ethan gently fastens it around her neck, a quiet thrill rushes through her. The thoughtful gesture leaves her unexpectedly giddy. Yet the moment ends too quickly. Ethan must leave early, and Dorothy can only wish he would stay a little longer. Aww. When she returns to her residence, the household erupts in excitement the moment they notice the radiant necklace resting on her collar. Teasing quickly fills the room. Amid the chaos, Clara offers a calm warning, reminding Dorothy to stay cautious and not be swayed by the young master's striking charm. Elsewhere in the palace, the Emperor quietly summons Ray. Something is brewing. Danger is on the way. The Emperor begins pressing Raymond to accept the throne, drawing him deeper into affairs of state. Day and night, Ray meets with nobles, burdened by duties he never seeks. In truth, he longs for a quiet life tending fields and gardens. What a mood! Elsewhere, Ethan grows restless. Since his confession, he has not felt Dorothy use the Spirit Stone even once. Doubt creeps in. Perhaps the princess is playing with his heart. Hope once surges when he finally reveals his feelings, but now confusion clouds his thoughts. Outside the Bronte residence, crowds gather for a glimpse of him. Masked and composed, Ethan confronts them with a charming yet icy warning, until a woman steps forward with a letter. Monica Aponita. Things are getting so interesting! I'm dying to see how it all plays out, especially for Ethan and Dorothy! When Ethan lays eyes on Monica, a torrent of memories from his former life surges through him. He remembers how Monica once tried to use him as her ticket out of an engagement to Nereus, the Prince of Hark, a match her family welcomed. Monica had pleaded for Ethan's help to end the betrothal, but his refusal only fueled her wrath. In the end, Monica orchestrated her own escape, cunningly convincing Nereus that Ethan was the culprit. When Nereus ascended the throne, he wasted no time in launching an attack on Ethan's homeland. Now, with the clarity of hindsight, Ethan sees that Nereus had simply been waiting for a pretext to strike at the Uvera Empire. With a wry smile, Ethan rips up the letter Monica gave him that morning. Meanwhile, Dorothy casts a wary glance at Raymond, puzzled by his relentless presence during every break. Raymond, unfazed, turns up the charm and claims he only wants to bask in her beauty. Dorothy, unimpressed, responds with icy indifference. Later, Raymond confides his worries about the Emperor demanding a solution to boost wheat production in the Barahan region. Dorothy listens and suggests rotating crops to balance the soil's nutrients. Raymond's eyes brighten at her idea, his mind racing back to his own studies on the subject. He hurries off, lavishing Dorothy with thanks and admiration, secretly convinced she would outshine any empress. Meanwhile, Arthur, Knight Commander of Radiance, seeks out Stefan to share news of his promotion, which will end his service as Dorothy's guard. Something in Arthur's manner feels off. Afterwards, while Stefan is sword training, he starts to weigh in on why he is suddenly given a promotion and thinks that it might be because of having the privilege of being Dorothy's escort. Stefan is then surprised when Dorothy launches her attack behind him, but he quickly blocks this. After their sparring session, Dorothy assures Stefan that he deserves the promotion and that she didn't use any of her connections, also adding that she wants to see Stefan climb the ladder, while thinking that she doesn't want to commit the same mistake she made during her past life. Ugh, to have a Stefan in life. Hearing this, Stefan then stares at Dorothy and realizes that it's Dorothy who kept him from moving forward, but it's his own choice. Thus, Stefan thanks Dorothy and assures her that he'll do his best. The day of the knighthood ceremony arrived, and as Dorothy entered the crowd, she was greeted and invited to talk. Dorothy starts to realize she should have gone with Raymond, but then thinks she'll have to squeeze in with Karen just like in her past life. Afterwards, Theo arrives beside Dorothy and informs the guests that she needs to leave because Raymond is calling for her. Away from the crowd, Dorothy asks where Raymond is, but Theo honestly tells her he only did it to get her out of the crowd, so Dorothy thanks him. Theo invites her to dinner, and while he talks, she stares at him, wondering why she likes him in the past when she doesn't know him well. Theo explains his desire to celebrate Dorothy's debut and awaken the spirit's power. Dorothy recalls how Theo previously caused the banquet blackout and realizes that his intent to marry her is linked to his plan for her to perform the purification. Dorothy then agrees to Theo's invitation since she thinks that he only wants to share the secrets of the spirits with her. Next, Dorothy approaches Stefan and hands him the legendary sword, Setter Calypse, as a gift, thinking he deserves it. Stefan thanks her and hands her the shell brooch she also gave him before and asks her to pin it, which Dorothy gladly agrees to. Afterwards, Clara arrives and asks if she can fix Stefan's attire, which she agrees to. Clara praises how handsome Stefan looks in the attire, and he reaches for her hands and kisses them, making her blush, while Dorothy only looks at them cutely. Well, looks like these two have a better love life than Dorothy. The ceremony begins, and as Karnan is inducted, Dorothy begins to realize how grateful she is for the people around her. After Stefan was appointed, Joe Greenwall also stepped forward, sparking curiosity. Hearing Joe's last name, Dorothy remembers that Joe is having a hard time remembering her own last name since she's a commoner without one, which is needed when she becomes a knight. While thinking, Joe turns to Stefan and asks if she can also use his last name, which Stefan gladly allows. Joe innocently asks what she needs to do to become a member of the Stefan family since it already exists. Stefan suggests adopting Joe as his daughter, which Joe willingly accepts. Oh, and Clara will soon be Joe's adoptive mother! While others were busy sorting everything out, Joe burst into tears, thanking everyone for helping and being kind to her and her brother. Hearing this, Dorothy says that being close to them isn't her plan, since she only wants to rescue them from the mine, but then she learns to love them as family. Presently, after the ceremony, Dorothy bumps into Karnan, who comments on her attending a ceremony for the first time. Listening to Karnan, she recalls that, in a past life, Karnan wanted to remove Stefan as her escort. Afterward, Dorothy is shocked to hear Karnan invite her to the Knight's Order banquet soon, as this is the first time she's been allowed to participate in an official event. Dorothy starts to wonder about Karnan's sudden invitation, and suspects it's because her spirit power is awakening, so she respectfully declines, noting she has nothing to do with the Knights, making Karnan slightly offended, but didn't dwell on it anymore. Meanwhile, Dorothy also notices how Raymond's face looks worried when Karnan approaches her. Thus, she feels at ease and happy to see Raymond caring for her. At the Alice Garden, Karnan quietly wonders why Dorothy didn't try to strengthen their bond and feels unsettled by her sudden change in attitude. A wave of guilt washes over him as he remembers how, after Alice died, he had little time for Dorothy. Though he tries to make up for it by giving her a present every birthday and a larger allotment, he still senses the distance between them and realizes these gestures haven't bridged the emotional gap with his daughter. Well, money doesn't solve everything. After Karnan sees Stefan instructing the staff on maintaining the Alice Garden, Karnan approaches and asks Stefan to walk with him. Karnan notices the brooch, and Stefan explains that it's a present from Dorothy. Learning this, Karnan realizes how close Dorothy is to Stefan that she even smiles at him willingly. Meanwhile, Joe is at the Knight's banquet, quietly watching the other knights celebrate. But after a few minutes, one knight approached her and started to ask her to join them for a drink. Joe respectfully declined this since she noticed that they were already intoxicated, but the knight wouldn't let her go and tried to pressure her to drink. But Joe shoves him and walks away. The knight pulls her hair while commenting that Joe is a commoner and a nobody. Luckily, Stefan arrives and shoves the knight while telling Joe to follow him. Joe is amazed upon arriving at Stefan's new office and comments that it's the best decision to accept the promotion. After Stefan hands Joe his old sword while telling her that it's his responsibility to protect Dorothy, he thinks that Joe deserves his sword for this. Joe emotionally accepts this and promises to do her job properly. She feels happy after Stefan gives her something important, seeing it as a symbol of her acceptance into his family. Ugh, these two are cute! The day Theon's dinner invitation arrives, and when Dorothy sees Theon, she suddenly feels nervous since she remembers in her past life Theon's sudden proposal, but she quickly calms herself as they arrive at the restaurant. Meanwhile, Ethan considers how best to deny Monica while avoiding conflict with Nereus. He debates either ignoring Monica to diminish her interest or actively helping her prevent the engagement, because he notices that Monica and Nereus are not yet engaged, unlike in the past when the engagement had already occurred by this time. Ethan is motivated to change the course of events and prevent unnecessary conflict. Ethan's thoughts shift to Dorothy, wondering why she hasn't contacted him. He wants to respect her time with Theon, assuring himself he's fine with it, but he still feels a pang in his chest, revealing his underlying concern and emotional connection. Afterwards, Ethan decides to take Monica out for dinner too. Upon arriving at the restaurant, they notice the servers are busier and more stressed than usual. But Ethan's question is answered when he sees Joe at the door and glimpses Theon and Dorothy inside. Seeing this scene, Ethan makes a commotion by pushing him and Monica towards the door where Dorothy is. They're all shocked by this situation, but Dorothy assures Joe that everything is fine, and Ethan and Monica may stay for a minute. Next, Ethan apologizes for the commotion, introduces Monica to them, and then announces that he and Monica have things to talk about. Dorothy stares at the closed doors and starts to feel something she can't explain, realizing she might be jealous, but quickly stops herself from thinking foolish stuff and decides she might only feel betrayed. Theon then tries to get Dorothy's attention back to him by confessing to her that he likes her. Stupid Theon! Theon admits that every time he sees Dorothy, a mysterious feeling stirs within him, hovering between the blue calm of friendship and the fiery red of love. He is certain it is deep admiration, yet the emotion remains nameless. This sensation lingers as he helps her choose a handkerchief, and again when their lips meet by the water's edge while fishing. Yet Theon confesses to Dorothy that he needs her strength as well. Dorothy grows frightened when she glimpses the shadowy aura that surrounds Theon, and realizes how powerless she feels, tears streaming down her face. When the darkness finally lifts, she finds Theo and scolds him for not trusting her enough to share Theon's pain. Meanwhile, Ethan finds it impossible to focus on dinner with Monica, haunted by the sense of Dorothy's presence just beyond the wall. Monica notices his distraction and asks if Dorothy is on his mind, prompting Ethan to wonder how she guessed. Monica explains that although she is grateful he accepted her invitation, she can tell his thoughts are with the people next door. I suppose that's what jealousy feels like. On their way home, Dorothy can't help but think about how Ethan acts cold towards her, and why she's still not satisfied, even if Theon is honest towards her and also agrees to his proposal, which is a good choice to atone for the guilt Dorothy feels towards him. Seeing Dorothy deep in her thoughts, Theon tells her that nothing will change, that he still loves her, whatever her answer, and that he will solve his problem with the spirit of darkness, so she doesn't need to feel pressure. Back at home, Theon is frustrated by how direct he is in proposing, and he doesn't even think about the consequences he will face with one wrong move. Meanwhile, Dorothy is frustrated by what is happening to her love life since she just moved on from Theon, and now she's starting to have feelings for Ethan, which makes her slightly scream. Hearing her scream, Clara barges in and worriedly asks what is bothering Dorothy. Thus, Dorothy shares that she is concerned she can't choose between the two birds. One that needs her care and affection, and the other that sings and gives her flowers. Dorothy shares with Clara that she thinks it's right to choose the injured bird, but Clara thinks otherwise, since it's unfair for the second bird, whom she truly likes, and also the bird that is constantly showing his affection, making Dorothy realize some things. That's right, Clara preached! Afterwards, Dorothy invites Clara to Nereus' sponsored concert, mentioning that Ethan will be there as well. She asks Clara to let everyone know she will be attending as well. Meanwhile, Nereus meets with the other Marquises and Dimitri, the Marquis of Uvera. Nereus announces his plan to raise tariffs in the Hark border region, complaining that most wheat from Hark is disguised as imperial wheat and is of poor quality. Dimitri agrees with a sly smile, knowing he has already been bribed by Nereus to spread rumors about Hark among the officials. Corruption's a poison to a kingdom. Disgusting! Later that day, on the day of the concert, Clara is taken aback by how stunning Dorothy looks. She excitedly announces that Julia will be joining them soon. When Julia arrives, Dorothy suddenly feels awkward since it is their first real conversation. Julia, however, greets her with excitement. As Dorothy shares her worries, Julia immediately guesses they concern Theon and reassures her that Theon's intentions are genuine. She promises she can vouch for him. Next, upon arriving at the concert, Dorothy sees and overhears Monica and Nereus arguing. Nereus blames Ethan for their broken engagement. When Monica tries to defend herself, Nereus strikes her, prompting Dorothy to step in and shield Monica. After Dorothy's harsh words, Nereus stormed away, his anger simmering. Left with Monica, Dorothy gently asked her about her dinner with Ethan. Monica replied with dignity that only Ethan could share such details. Upon entering the hall, the guests admire Dorothy's beauty, but Nereus puts her in the spotlight and pressures her to reveal the spirit of light she possesses. Dorothy realizes that Nereus and the others must also be suspicious about her power, since her sudden awakening contradicts all theories about spirit power. Dorothy refused, explaining that showing her power would not earn her rule. She understood that her past tyranny stemmed from her failure to take responsibility for her people. Nereus persisted, twisting her words. Dorothy smiled and said she would reveal her power, if all were ready to truly see. The crowd watched in awe as Dorothy let her spirit shine for all to see, while Nereus stepped back, overshadowed by the attention he had drawn to her. Dorothy turned directly to Ethan, her voice trembling with longing, and confessed her desire for his love and undivided attention. She suggested that it's time for them to become a couple. As Dorothy waits for Ethan's answer, memories of their first meeting flood her mind. She sensed instantly that they shared the same emotional wavelength. Even after pulling back, hoping to shield herself, she cannot escape Ethan's unwavering presence. Each time she tries to drift away, he's quietly there, protecting and caring for her, a reassurance she feels even now. Watching Ethan with Monica at the restaurant, Dorothy is reminded of his popularity and how many people are drawn to him. If Ethan truly wanted power, he could have married a renowned noblewoman, yet he chose to remain by her side, even when she barely noticed him and her heart was preoccupied with Theon. Only now does Dorothy recognize that her lingering feelings for Ethan have kept her from confessing to Theon or accepting his proposal. She understands it is time to let go of the past and embrace a future with Ethan. When Dorothy confesses, Ethan sweeps her into a warm embrace and whispers that he loves her too. He leans in, closing the distance between them for a long-awaited kiss. Yes, I can hardly believe this is happening! Finally! Ethan is stunned that Dorothy loves him too. He had promised himself to let her go, to bury his feelings so deeply that he never even allowed himself a sliver of hope. Tears well up in his eyes, and Dorothy worries he might be overwhelmed. But Ethan kisses her again, confessing that this moment, her loving him back, has always been his dream. How could Ethan be any more of a green flag? Meanwhile, in another part of the house, Joe knocks at the door, asking what is wrong since the other guests are waiting for Dorothy and Ethan. Remembering the concert, Dorothy quickly composes herself and gets ready to return. Ethan suggests they slip away together, but Dorothy reminds him that he is the special guest performer. Ethan sighs in defeat. Meanwhile, Nereus seethes with anger after Dorothy embarrasses him in front of the guests. Consumed by resentment, he notices Ethan's unattended violin on a table. Making sure no one is watching, he grins wickedly and deliberately cuts every string, intent on ruining Ethan's upcoming performance. Back in the performers' rooms, when Ethan returns, he is shocked to find the strings on his violin cut. His secretary suggests canceling the performance, and Ethan almost agrees until he notices one spare string. With renewed determination, he tells his secretary the concert will go on. Next, Nereus eagerly announces Ethan as the special guest, only to be stunned when Ethan appears, violin in hand, strung with just one string. He explains that a minor inconvenience happened to his violin, but assures that he can still play it. Nereus still fails to sabotage Ethan. As the crowd marvels at Ethan's skillful performance on a single violin string, Nereus seethes with frustration, his anger fueled by yet another failure, and Ethan's growing admiration from others. After the concert, Dorothy struggles to reach Ethan, who is surrounded by admirers. Remembering his request to keep their relationship hidden, she understands, given the recent gossip swirling around their names in the Empire. Still, a pang of disappointment lingers, and with a quiet sigh, Dorothy slips away from the crowd. Meanwhile, Monica tells Ethan she's heading home, expressing her gratitude and apologizing for her actions the previous day. Ethan offers a reassuring smile, confident that Monica will find the strength to escape the marriage she never agreed to. Monica returns his smile, wishing him and Dorothy the best. The next day, Dorothy gently apologizes to Theon, explaining that she must turn down his proposal because she has realized her feelings for Ethan. Theon manages a smile, assuring her that he understands, though a tightness grips his chest. Steadying himself, he says he will meet Raymond and, before leaving, sincerely wishes Dorothy happiness. When Theon arrives at Raymond's room, a wave of weakness washes over him as he confides that Dorothy has turned him down. Seeking a new purpose, Theon asks Raymond to accept him as his aide, a request Raymond gladly accepts. In the following days, Dorothy wakes up happily, and Clara notices this and points it out to her. Dorothy starts to realize that she's always thinking about Ethan, which is why she smiles. Well, she's in love! Dorothy then comes up with an idea and tells Clara she wants to learn an instrument after seeing the concert, and Clara instantly suggests Ethan is the best teacher for that. Thus, Dorothy writes a letter inviting Ethan to the palace. The next day, Ethan is thrilled to receive his first letter from Dorothy, and after reading the content, he quickly replies and agrees to teach Dorothy. A few days later, while Ethan is walking towards Dorothy's office, Jo stops him and says she doesn't want him around Dorothy because she's seen him with other ladies. But Ethan smiles at her. Upon arriving at Dorothy's office, Ethan quickly hugs her and expresses how he misses her. Next, he asks what Dorothy is busy with and if she wants his help, which Dorothy gladly accepts. While reviewing the documents, Ethan realized they were the proposals Dorothy had made to her in her past life, before she became a tyrannical empress. Thus, Ethan understands why she doesn't want to propose these policies. Uvera stands as an empire of wealth and power, but beneath that image lies a reality the nobles rarely see. Disguised, Princess Dorothy walks through the poorest alleys with Ethan when two siblings stop them, the older brother clutching his sick sister and begging for help. The princess orders Ethan to find medicine, though she knows it won't be enough, and offers money additionally. The siblings accept it with desperate gratitude. From above, she takes in the city. Behind her is Ethan, asking what she thinks. After witnessing how her people are suffering, she vows that she will ensure that not a single person in Uvera will starve, nor will anyone perish due to lack of medicine. She swears to provide for her people and create a world without discrimination. Impossible to some, yet Ethan sees the conviction in her eyes. To him, she is someone who must become empress. However, back in the castle, when this is brought up again, Dorothy still doesn't want to repeat the tragedy of the past that's tied to being the empress. Instead, the princess presents a list of reforms to right her wrongs. Ethan thinks that Dorothy is absolutely adorable for writing these. Well, Ethan, you always think she's adorable. Ethan doesn't miss the section dedicated to reforming him. She quickly snatches it back in embarrassment. Ethan promises to help her achieve everything on that list, even if she struggles to define what good truly means. As their first step, music. Dorothy admits she isn't particularly skilled, and Ethan teases her for it. Remembering an old piano room, she grabs his hand and pulls him along, with Ethan firmly holding her hand. The soft note of a piano fills the quiet room as Dorothy presses a key. Seated beside her, Ethan watches her hands, correcting her placement with gentle guidance. His touch on her sent her thoughts drifting. She flinches suddenly. Ethan pauses confused. Flustered, Dorothy babbles about sword handling, somehow comparing it to piano technique to hide her blush. As her playing improves, Ethan praises her softly. Dorothy wishes they had done this sooner, but she knows such moments exist only because of all they've endured. They endured so much. Let them be happy. Ethan admits, fearing they might never have reached this point. Dorothy hesitates, saying she wants to know him if he wants to share. But he chooses to speak anyway. From the moment he opened his eyes, all he wanted was to see her. He pulls her close. Dorothy realizes she's his reason. She shows him her spirit stone, explaining her role. Ethan understands instantly. Without it, things would be different. He sees her feelings towards Theon are not true, but whatever feelings she feels for Theon, he still hates it. He kisses her hand and asks her not to abandon him. Blushing, Dorothy presses a soft kiss to his forehead as a promise. Later, as Ethan walks the hallways, the last person he wants appears. Theon casually mentions the piano lessons. Ethan's reply is sharp, laced with sarcasm. Theon's gaze hardens, but Ethan meets it with equal coldness. After all, that side of him is reserved for Theon alone. Tension hangs heavy in the air. Theon doesn't hold back, claiming his feelings for Dorothy run deeper than anything Ethan could offer. And if Ethan ever harms her, Theon won't forgive him. Ethan is still ruthless. He's out here defending his girl like no one's business. Theon clenches his fist, calling Ethan unworthy of serving the princess. But Ethan knows that kind of jealousy all too well. He's felt it himself toward Theon before. Meanwhile, the imperial court buzzes with unrest. News spread of rising tariffs after the empire loses a local battle against the Hark. Dorothea stays quiet. Unexpectedly, the crown prince Raymond presents an unusual proposal. Crop rotation. He hands over documents, optimistic, though the king cuts the discussion short, leaving the plan under consideration as the meeting adjourns. Behind closed doors, the Emperor's butler praises the idea, only for the Emperor to note something curious. The reason Dorothy has said nothing during the meeting? Even if the prince himself has said that she has insights into the crop rotation idea. The butler continues, mentioning her recent piano lessons, under Ethan of the Bronte family. The king halts, recalling Ethan as the Brontes' illegitimate child. His expression stays unreadable, but his thoughts are clear. He does not favor the boy. Rumors aside, Ethan's composure and eloquence make him difficult to judge. The butler explains that Dorothy, still young, naturally seeks companionship, yet she spends time with no one but Ethan. That alone makes the Emperor pause. Well, you isolated her. No wonder she doesn't have any other noble friends. In the past, he's never really acknowledged her, but not anymore. With that in mind, he asks about her birthday. Planning something grand, a formal introduction to the ministers, a gesture long overdue. Dorothy receives the news herself. A banquet? In her past life, nothing like this ever happened. She wonders if it has something to do with the late Empress or the spirit power she was never meant to hold. Then Ethan arrives carrying a music sheet as an excuse. Even he questions the banquet. Is it a celebration or something else entirely? At his request, Dorothy begins trying on the dress prepared for the banquet. Ethan watches quietly, like a groom awaiting his bride. When she steps out in a soft blue gown, almost unreal in elegance, he forgets how to breathe. Later, alone, the silence between them feels heavier. Ethan closes the distance, gently taking her hands, asking for permission. Dorothy does not pull away. As warmth threatens to overwhelm them, he stops, pulling back just enough to maintain control. Love is definitely in the air. Despite the walls between them, their feelings will rise above it all. The day of the banquet has arrived. Dressed in a royal blue gown, Princess Dorothy stands ready, Clara by her side. Everything seems perfect. Almost perfect. Clara notices a strange detail, a gift from Marquis Dimitri. Dorothy frowns. He's never sent her anything before. A bribe seems more likely than a gift. That aside, she is wrapped in luxury that feels heavier than it should. Clara casually asks if Ethan will attend. As if on cue, Dorothy literally runs into him in the hallway. Both pause and realize they're dressed in matching shades of royal blue and whites. Their outfit really screams power couple. Just get married already! Ethan smiles, taking her hand and placing a gentle kiss on its back, silently promising they'll meet again inside. Then he leaves. Dorothy steps forward, opening a hallway door, and freezes. The crown prince stands before her, holding a cake he made, smiling brightly as he sings happy birthday. She catches herself smiling back, realizing this day isn't a memorial for the late empress, but her birthday. Then Karnan, the king, arrives. Dorothy curtsies immediately. The tension in the room thickens. His orders are clear that Ray is to watch over her during the banquet. As Karnan turns to lead them inside, Dorothy hesitates. Ray gently urges her forward. Today, she is the main character of this celebration. The grand hall erupts in applause as the royal family enters. Dorothy shines as she walks with her brother. Ministers and nobles surround them, and Ethan claps along, but his eyes immediately find Theon standing nearby with Julia. Their gaze locks. A polite yet sharp exchange follows. Ethan notices a gift in Theon's hands and questions it, only to be met with a vague answer. Julia watches, caught in the middle as unspoken tension brews. Looking at the two, Julia realizes why the princess has rejected Theon. It's because of Ethan Bronte. As Ethan walks away, his composure falters slightly. He fights his anxiety, even as he questions if he may just be a substitute for Theon. Meanwhile, Dorothy stands beside the Emperor. For the first time, Karnan is openly praising her, even mentioning that her beauty has come from her mother. Dorothy smiles thinly, knowing how often he ignored her before. Her thoughts drift to the late Empress, to the way she was blamed simply for resembling her. Such grade A parenting! So why the change? Before she can dwell, Theon steps forward, presenting his gift. The Emperor welcomes him, commenting on their closeness. Dorothy smiles faintly. Then the Emperor speaks of historic ties between the millionaire and freed families, and hints at an engagement. The king asks for thoughts to the crown prince, who is caught off guard. However, Theon swears to remain loyal to the prince his whole life. Dorothy remains still until her gaze lands on Ethan. He approaches, kneels, and takes her hand, pressing a kiss right before the king. The Emperor watches silently as Ethan rises but says nothing. He then smiled, then just as quickly he left. Dorothy remains, expecting more, but nothing comes. Her head then remains bothered that Ethan seems to be acting like a stranger. Soon, she finds herself before her towering birthday cake. For a moment, she wishes Ethan were beside her, but the thought fades. He's probably enjoying himself somewhere. She is so frustrated that she reaches for a glass of wine. Ethan is in the middle of the hall, dancing with another woman, acting as if nothing had happened between them, as if she weren't there. For the first time that night, Dorothy feels truly alone. Oh no, this secret relationship trope is really difficult for them. Suddenly, a small commotion. Wine spills on Ethan's pristine suit, and a lady brushes against his chest a little too deliberately. Dorothy tightens her grip on her glass, wanting him to push her away. As expected, he grabs the lady's hand and removes it from himself. He smiles, rolls up his sleeves, and removes his blazer effortlessly, drawing every eye in the room. Then, with a graceful excuse, he leaves. Outside, Ethan exhales. His thoughts return to the king's plan between Theon and Dorothy. He almost wanted to declare her as his, but the king would never accept his status. A sudden tug stops him. Dorothy stands before him, eyes glistening with tears, accusing him of pretending not to know her, of smiling with someone else while she's left behind. She cries. He finally understands that they feel the same. Without a word, he pulls her close and kisses her. Sitting on a garden bench, Dorothy curiously asks him what his gift for her is. He simply smiles and asks her to follow, instructing her to keep her eyes closed. Heart pounding, she obeys. When she opens them, they stand in a garden conservatory. Ethan holds a violin, ready to play a piece dedicated entirely to her. Dorothy feels tears prick at her eyes, moved by the thoughtfulness of his gift. Ethan is such a romantic. The space between them shrinks. Their lips meet, the kiss deepening with a heat that makes Dorothea flush. She cannot deny that Ethan is handsome and hopes for him to be less perfect. That way she will have fewer rivals. As he bites her finger playfully, Ethan's mind drifts, hoping she will never talk to Theon Freed. The princess then confesses that her feelings for him are so much that she fears he'll grow to hate her. Ethan captures her hand, pressing it to his chest. With a desperate look, he tells her how crazy he is for her. Eventually, they settle, sitting together against one another. Ethan urges her to go inside, but Dorothea stubbornly stays, wanting their moment to last. His eyes catch a mark on her neck, and she playfully hides it with her hair. Ethan resists the urge to pull her close again. Instead, he offers his hand to escort her back to the castle, teasing about someone discovering their secret. Suddenly, a familiar shadow looms. Stefan! Dorothy and Ethan quickly shoot excuses, but fail to convince him. His gaze shoots daggers at Ethan, but before he can respond, Stefan draws his sword, ordering him to step away. Dorothy doesn't hesitate. She steps boldly between them, standing firm. She then confesses that she loves Ethan. Stefan says nothing, sheathing his sword. The princess sighs in relief, knowing he won't tell anyone. As she walks alongside him, Ethan offers his farewells, earning a sharp side-eye from Stefan. Because of it, Ethan never manages to give her his second gift, a donation certificate. Breaking the silence, Stefan finally greets her with a soft happy birthday. Dorothy thanks him, and he confesses almost sheepishly that he didn't bring a gift, unsure what she would like. Dorothy giggles. All she wants is to see Leo the lion, her first proper gift, and to walk with him as she had before. Instead of walking, Stefan carries her, just like on her first birthday with him. Stefan asks why she likes Ethan. Dorothy smiles, explaining that he is her comfort, her reason she wants to be brave. Stefan's expression softens. She thanks him for keeping their secret and for everything he's done. Stefan is really the father she should have had. Some time passes, and Raymond can't help but want to know why his sister only ever communicated her ideas through letters, quietly shaping policies that strengthen the empire. Curious and slightly unsettled, Raymond goes for a walk. He spots Dorothy and Ethan talking. Hiding, he overhears her confession that her passion to become an emperor is still here. Startled, Raymond steps on a leaf, halting their conversation mid-sentence. Raymond stays quiet, hidden among the bushes. Fortunately, he's able to quickly escape. He can't shake the weight of Dorothy's words. Her harshness before he realizes was born from the yearning to become the emperor, restrained because of him. He silently wishes she had been born first so she could pursue her dreams while he tended to the fields and to purify Theon. Meanwhile, Dorothy and Ethan talk quietly. She wants their relationship to be official now that everyone knows they're dating, though approval remains unspoken. Their moment is interrupted by Marquis Dimitri. Dorothy notes his arrogance. He values arguments over Hark's safety, and she remembers how he once used her to target Uvera. Dimitri mentions his son, who is talented, and suggests a meeting and then pressures Dorothy to consider marriage, dismissing Ethan entirely. Ethan recalls how, before the regression, he silenced Dimitri for his crimes. Dorothy then tells him to arrange the meeting while clasping her hands against Ethan's. Dimitri stiffens, uncomfortable. Then he excuses himself, leaving venomous words behind. Ethan wonders why she spared him. Dorothy replies that it's time to focus on the positive, especially now with Karnan's upcoming death and Nereus moving to Hark to claim the throne and destroy Monica's family. She fears another war. Ethan reassures and places his trust, his bet, entirely on her. At a distant shipyard, a hooded Dimitri greets a blue-haired prince. "Long time no see, Prince Nereus." Wealth and secrets exchange hands, and Dimitri whispers that Ethan and Dorothy have been secretly meeting. Nereus doesn't care. Chaos will engulf Uvera soon enough. Back in the piano room, Princess Dorothy and Ethan sit close on a silk-woven couch. She worries Ethan's musical talent is wasted, but he assures her that teaching her is the best way to share it. They lean in to kiss. But then the door flies open. Joey rushes in, calling for the princess. Poe is being punished. Rushing to the scene, Dorothy learns from the head chef that Poe was caught smuggling leftover royal foods. Alone with him, Poe admits he shared the food with starving people, finding it wasteful to let it go to waste. He kneels, apologizing, explaining he only wanted to show the same kindness he'd seen in the princess. Dorothy's heart softens. She kneels beside him, pats his head, and acknowledges his good deed. He cannot work in the royal kitchen anymore, but she assures him she is not disappointed. Grateful, Poe hugs her. Joey checks on Poe, and he thanks him for helping avoid harsher punishment. Stefan arrives, concerned, and Poe bursts into tears, hugging him as well. Dorothy smiles, thinking how much they look like a family. Poe shares that he plans to open a shop. Dorothy promises to introduce him to good lenders and grants him a royal medal to secure support. She feels certain she did the right thing in helping others and supporting Poe in his new path. Months later, a bakery opens, brimming with breads and pastries. Princess Dorothy marvels at the display. "Way to go, Poe!" Dorothy praises the shop, and Poe admits it's still a bit disorganized. As a gift, he offers her a freshly baked pie. She accepts wholeheartedly. Poe promises to work hard with her help, sharing happiness, especially with those in need. An anonymous figure with piercing blue eyes appears, asking for a loaf. Poe offers, but the figure insists he only wants what Dorothy holds. Clara calls out his rudeness. The figure pulls back his hood. Prince Raymond! Poe offers him bread anyway, leaving Raymond to quietly wonder if he could handle situations as Dorothy does. To escape the summer heat, the royal family holds the annual hunting tournament. This year is the first without Karnan. As in the past, it's the time when he passes. Dorothy then runs with Joey, knowing someone might follow her, intending to meet Ethan, yet no one catches up. Ethan is already waiting. Thanks to his brother Jonathan, he went undetected. Dorothea recalls saving Jonathan's life during a past hunting trip, despite his torment to her. She begins teaching Ethan to hunt. He struggles to shoot the arrows properly. Joey laughs, but Dorothy encourages him. Ethan smiles at her patience, his confidence slowly growing under her guidance. Arrows scatter across the field. Ethan apologizes, frustrated with his lack of skill, but Dorothy remains patient. She adjusts his stance, guiding his arms, teaching him when to release. Finally, he lands the shot. A small bunny falls, and Ethan lights up in disbelief. Dorothy smiles, proud of his successful hunt. Their moment is cut short by the sound of a horn. A guard rushes toward them, giving news about the crown prince. Raymond lies unconscious in a royal bed, head wrapped in bandages. Dorothy freezes. This never happened before. Not in her past life. The realization hits hard. He might die. Her strength falters. She had lived hoping he would take the throne, and now she might lose him. Panic creeps in, but Ethan calms her, reminding her she must stand in his place. She gathers herself. She orders everyone to keep silent. Before the king, Dorothy reports calmly. The situation is under control. The king nods, even praises her. Then, with a heavy sigh, he admits, if Raymond does not wake, she will succeed him. Fear grips her. What if she falls into the same evil path again? Suddenly, the butler rushes in, urging the king to come at once. Dorothy's chest tightens. Raymond isn't dying, is he? Raymond suddenly sits up in bed, shocking both the Emperor and Dorothy. She rushes to his side, asking how he feels. He smiles calm. He's fine. But then he asks who she is. The room falls silent. Dorothy feels the world drop beneath her. Raymond remembers nothing. Not his name, not his past. She reminds him who she is, hoping for even a flicker of recognition. Nothing. Only him saying how pretty his sister is. Later on, Theon arrives, only to find Ethan with the royal siblings. He demands that he leave, but Dorothy defends him. She introduces them both to her brother, Theon as his aide, Ethan as her music tutor. To Raymond, they are strangers. He asks if he and Dorothy were ever on bad terms. She clenches her fist but denies it. The prince expresses his relief, saying that if he had a strained relationship with such a lovely sister, that would mean that he is an awful person. Dorothea laughs brightly at her silly brother. Even without memories, he's still the same. Soon, Dorothy and Theon are called away, leaving Ethan behind. But Ethan knows the truth. Raymond is pretending, and he wonders how long the act will last. Elsewhere, the king assigns Dorothea to handle Raymond's duties for now, with Theon helping her. Dorothy purses her lips, knowing she's a substitute. Before more can be said, the king coughs, alerting the two. Dorothy goes cold. The king's hand is stained with blood. So guys, what do you think of this story so far? Please subscribe and turn on notifications for updates on this and all our other stories, so you can be the first to find out when they're out. Thank you so much for your support. See you in the next one!